Welcome, everybody, back to ClassHorrorCast. I am one of the hosts of this horrifically strange podcast, and welcome to my nightmare. Aaron is currently being suffocated by a Freddy Krueger mask.
Okay.
So
I don't know if anybody can hear anything I'm saying, but
they can hear you. It's like glued to your face.
look at this.
You know, like that Goosebumps mask where it's like gets stuck on the chick's face? That's what it looks like.
I'm gonna take this off so you can just talk.
Yeah, that's fine. We are both dressed up. It's fine. I have two Freddy sweaters. The first one I bought, it was like, oh, I got an extra large. I'm a big boy. I'm thick boned. It's like literally like latex. And then it was like oversized. Like I have to like somehow sell this to a fat guy. I give it to like a homeless guy that kind of looks like Freddy Krueger. And then he can wear the big oversized sweater. But I got a smaller one that actually fit me. But I do like yours. Yours is like the actual kind of burnt, darker look. Mine is like legit just red and green. You can't see it on the camera, but it's like the.
I think this
yours
was
is more from the original.
a Spirit Halloween.
That's where I got this shit from.
Yeah, I think that's where
I like
got
yours
this
way
last
better.
year. I don't
This
know
is like
which-
actually looks burnt.
I'm not sure what's on the tag. I think it might be the
Weird.
original.
That's cool. Yeah, this is just some fucking. Yeah, so welcome everybody. This should be pretty exciting. We are getting into our deep dive on Freddy Krueger. It's gonna be a fun time.
Can you remember the first time you saw Freddy or came across him?
I would say I've told you the story a little bit. I think the first time I ever, as far as my memory goes, because I was fairly young, watched a horror movie was A Nightmare on Elm Street, and it was at my brother's friend's house. This kid named Calvin, and there you go. I have my Freddy mask over there, but it's been like underneath my bed in this like flat container for so long that
Oh, no.
he looked messed up. So I need to get for the next deep dive when we get into 4, 5, and 6. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm gonna get one of the foam heads I have in storage because I used to have stuff, and I'm gonna actually set him up. But it's modeled. I got it during a fan expo, and it's modeled after Robert Englund's head. And boy, does he have a small head! I cannot get the mask on at all. I've cut it a little bit, like on the back, just to see if I could get like a little bit because I didn't want to ruin it.
Mhm.
See if I can get my head on it. It doesn't work. No, I can't get my fucking.
Still
Cannot
can't.
get my head on. No, he's got a tiny head, or I have a big head. Either one, but big head, big brain, right? They say, I think. Or a
Yeah.
Neanderthal's got tiny little brains in those big heads.
Which
So
one? Are you?
yeah, I know. My brother had this friend. That's fucking not good. I had my hot coffee by the computer, and it like was steaming up my screen. And this kid was not from the greatest environment. Let's just say that. And it was just we sat down. I was like 8 years old, and they were either playing it or watching it, and I just kind of caught glimpses of it. But I feel like I remember watching most of it, and it changed my life forever. You know, I went outside, I poured gasoline on myself, and I touched a child, and then I burned myself alive. I'm fucking kidding, everybody. It's a fucking joke.
No, it's not.
But hopefully it doesn't fucking.
Would you say it changed your life for the better or for the worse?
I don't know. I don't think movies. I don't think horror movies influence me in a negative way. I feel like it was my friends that I had. My friends that were from impoverished homes and had not well structured households with their parents being around. That's probably what fucked me up the most. Did you have a frog in your throat?
I thought I was about to choke. I took a drink of Heineken and I like kind of partly swallowed it, and then I was like,
It's Bill Gates trying to kill you with that Moobs beer.
I am still on the moves beer. I still haven't finished that case yet.
Did you get like a 2-4? That's what we call it. 2-4, eh?
What?
24.
Jesus Christ, what's that?
It's 24 beer.
I always
24
hear
beer,
you
bud.
saying that, and I'm like, Oh, that's two for $4 is what he's talking about.
No, no, it's 24 beers, a 2-4. It's a 2-4, eh? Or like, did you say 26er? So for
No.
like the little bottles of booze, we call them Mickeys, like the little, and I know what you guys call them, Mickey. And so it's a little bottle of booze, like kind of like a handheld one, not like the airplane bottles, but the one up from that. And then the next one, like 26 ounces, like the normal bottle of vodka or whiskey or whatever, like you have had in my background before and stuff like that. That's a 20. We call it a 26er.
No, so we
I don't know
have
what you guys call that shit.
so like there's say those little airplane bottles you're talking about.
Yeah,
Then the next one up from them we call a naggin.
you call it a naggin.
Yeah, Nagan, naggin.
That's really weird.
And then the next one up from that, it's like slightly
Yeah.
bigger. Is called a
Yeah.
shoulder.
A shoulder, weird.
Yeah, and then like I don't know what the bigger ones you're talking about is called. I don't know.
Yeah, then we do 40 ounce and then a 60 ounce. And then I don't understand why the smallest bottle other than the airplane bottle, the one up from that is called a Mickey. But then if you get into those like huge bottles that are like, it will take you like a year to drink, those massive bottles, we call it a Texas Mickey. I don't know why. I'd have to look it up.
Because Mickeys are bigger in Texas.
I guess so. I
That
guess
would
so.
be so weird if I said that to somebody here. Oh, I'm just gonna go get a big Mickey.
Yeah, Texas Mickey.
I'm gonna get a couple of Mickeys, and they'd
Just
be
be like, I'm going.
floating
Just
the
go.
pride
Like,
flag.
yeah, I'm going to get a 2-4. I'm going to get a 2-4, eh?
I was convinced that you meant like 2 cans for $4.
No. No, 2-4. Oh yeah, because I did say that when I got the 2-4 of Keith's, Alexander Keith's, and you don't know an Alexander Keith. Sounds like a country singer.
Like, what's he
So
talking
I can't have beer. It is 10 a.m. when we're recording in Canada. So I have coffees surrounding me, and I have one of these delicious Italian orange drinks. They're so good, my favorite. So good. It's like a I don't even know how to pronounce that. It's in Italian. It's like the whole thing is like Italian, and it's not in English at all, except for the word natural, which is not even in English. It's naturale. So
Well,
I'm doing mushrooms later, so I don't want to mix no shit till later. Gonna do some mushrooms.
I can
Smoke
make it
some
feel
cigars.
a little bit better, and because I've completely downgraded, so I'm on zero alcohol.
What?
Yeah, zero alcohol Heineken.
Is that what you were drinking this whole time we've been recording? Like the last
No,
couple weeks?
no, not every time, but certain times I have. If I need to take the car out later on, then
Yeah.
I pretend that
You
I'm able to
fake
drink,
it?
and I just try and
That
convince
sounds like an
my mind
alcoholic
I'm like,
thing to
I'm
do.
like, yummy, I get to have alcohol even though I don't.
That's fucking funny. I did not know that. Wow. So I guess you're going out later, so you don't want you want to drive.
Well, I have to pick the kiddo up later on, so I was like,
Yeah.
can't really drink and drive.
Who has kids nowadays, man?
I
I don't know.
Boring.
Especially on. Okay, we're not getting into that. Okay. So welcome everybody, as I said, to the show. You know,
Welcome to my nightmare.
this is going to be a fun deep dive. I'm sure, Aaron, you're going to bring us in. I have my thoughts written down about some of the movies when we get into that. But this is something that we're going to do for big series is really do a big deep dive into some of these more famous films in the horror genre, especially slasher films are our favorite, our go-to. So this should be quite interesting. And I'm pretty, yeah. And the first time I'll just finish that thought finally is I think like the first time, yeah, I was at like this kid's house, and my brother knew, and I remember it kind of the first one rewatching it. The first one was decently scary. Like even I sent you a video of me watching it. Like I actually compared to the other ones, and when we get the first one was actually pretty scary. I remember it kind of actually scaring me when I was a kid, but I'm telling all the audience out there, I'm probably one of the biggest Freddy Krueger fans, especially when I was younger. I love slasher films. Always been my go-to. Always been my main thing when I go back to horror movies. Like I will watch Nightmare on Elm Street over and over again before I even watch some of these new movies that I probably should try giving a chance. And I used to draw Freddy Krueger all the time when I was a little young lad. I would draw him on pieces of paper and stuff like that, cutting up bodies and some fun stuff that I used to draw when I was a young kid.
I wish we could see young Tom's psycho drawings.
Yeah, I might one day be able to find some. Maybe I try I have to think where they would be, or if I threw them out, or if my mom has them. But I'd have to. I know that at one point I did have this like folder of all these drawings.
That would be
And then when I
so
got
good.
older, I started drawing like Charles Manson and stuff like that. So it changed into the real aspect of horror and crime and all that stuff, right? But I've always been a huge fan of Freddy Krueger. I have all my display of the stuff that I have. I have like this little guy. It's pretty fun. Doesn't it looks like him kind of, but it's like a NECA doll. But I have all my stuff on display. I've always really loved Freddy Krueger. And I've always liked him as a slasher villain because he talks. I don't know. He's got this
Yeah.
attitude about him. It's kind of funny. It's kind of lighthearted, and you kind of root for him in some regard. Most of the time, I want him on camera more often. You know?
It's weird because I feel like without Robert Englund and like the way that character all came about and how he progressed through the franchise, I just don't feel
Yeah.
like that franchise would have been anything. I think it would have been hard, in the face of Halloween and um, Friday the 13th and some of these other slasher characters that don't speak. It would have been
Yeah.
hard, I think, to have another one become so successful if he didn't talk.
I agree.
Because it's just kind of
I
like,
agree.
that's just another guy with a mask who doesn't really have a
Yeah,
personality.
like
per se.
Jason and Michael and all of them that are even Leatherface. He just makes sorry the where's my the he just makes sounds.
I
Where
need
he's
to
like,
get one of those.
like fucking, you know that sound.
I need
Everyone
to
knows
get
that.
one of those beeper things.
Yeah, you can. That's what it's fun. We claim we're not censored, but then if Billy says stuff I don't like, I could just press the button and it cuts both of our mics out.
You know what, right? Actually, no, I'm not even going to continue with that thought.
No,
No,
that's not
because we're talking about Freddy Krueger.
Freddy Krueger, the child molesting rapist that burned alive in a boiler room. For some reason, he liked to hang out in.
Do you know what though, right? I think when I first ever came across Freddy Krueger, I don't think I actually seen the movie even. For me,
Saw.
my Saw. Don't think I ever saw the movie, seen the movie. Huh.
keep going.
Which one is correct now? Because I don't know if that's my
Saw.
like
Seen is
Irish like
yeah
if I-
degeneracy.
yeah, like if I'm like talking to a friend.
Yeah.
Um
I saws it with my own
I
eyes.
can't even remember what I was talking about. Oh yeah, Freddy Krueger. I think the first time I ever came across him was probably in a video store and seeing like the artwork for.
Yeah.
I don't even remember which movies it was. There was probably multiple, but I remember
Yeah,
I was going
yeah.
down to the horror section like and seeing like these different characters, and I remember he being quite a prominent one. I think they even had like a standee at one point, and I was always kind of like, I think equal parts like afraid because people used to be like, people would say, "Oh, Freddy Krueger and all those movies, oh, it's all scary," and there was like this mystery around him, but at the same time, I was like, I kind of feel like he's kind of cool, and like I kind of want him to be my hero. Like he looks like he's quite trendy and cool at the time.
Yeah, and I can agree, and it is really weird considering he is a child molester when you say that, and then we're children being like, I think this guy's cool. We would have been kidnapped into a van. If somebody was like in a really good Freddy Krueger costume, we would have both got molested.
100%.
And then our parents probably wouldn't have found us and he wouldn't have been burnt alive. It wouldn't be the same. We would just be sex trafficked into the European sex trafficking ring. but like
Probably.
I agree though, because like Blockbuster was a big thing, or even just like we had one called Flicks, and it always had like more of the obscure horror movies like that. I don't know, maybe Blockbuster and more mainstream stuff wouldn't have. And then there was a convenience store that we had just down the street. We would rent tons of movies. There's always the newer ones. That's why I like this flick store, because like they had like a lot of horror movies. So we would see the cover used to draw us in for sure when we were like me and my buddies. That was the very first thing that caught our eyes, and that's why we like rented that one movie I told you about, Sick, and it was like a clown on the cover, and it looked like it. The budget was like $300.
I am like, in a way, there's times when I think about it, I'm a little bit annoyed that I wasn't, say, the age I am now back then in that era, solely just because I feel like that's like a lost art. The fact that, you know, they were able to sell these movies just on how cool the cover looked, and that became like a thing. And I suppose in the times of rentals and things like that, you know, we talked about this multiple times before. You know, you go and rent a tape, like you're committed to that movie. So even if it's trash, like you're gonna see it through till the end at least once.
You know how many movies I choose, and my significant other, my girlfriend, fiance, whatever, she constantly, I'm like, oh, we should watch this movie. Then we watch it, just like skin him a rink. And then I'm like halfway fucking, I'm like, I don't know, 20 minutes in, half an hour in, I'm like, fuck this shit.
Yep.
It can't keep my attention. I don't know if I like this. But like any slasher film, I can literally watch. It's my comfort films, which is so strange. Like Nightmare on Elm Street is definitely like a comfort film for me, where I can go back and watch any of them multiple times, still enjoy them. I used to like every time I was kind of drunk, like and just like done drinking and just kind of smoke up a little weed at the end of the night, I would throw on like a Nightmare on Elm Street film or a Friday the 13th film and thoroughly enjoy it and just be like kind of like just buzzed and fucking be like, oh yeah, fucking. There's some tits, some blood.
Do you think if we had the movies we get nowadays, but it was back in that era, do you think that do you think it's the quality of the movies or the subject of the movies or the fact that we've literally got like 8,000 different streaming platforms and like
and the streaming platforms is the problem, because then you can't find what you actually kind of like sometimes. Then you give things try, and like I tried to watch the new Ant-Man movie. I was not impressed at all.
Terrible.
Yeah, it's like fucking whack. How I don't know. It's like they're destroying cinema in a lot of ways, and I've always said I wish I could be like, I don't know, 15 in 1985, so I could like hang out with Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm just kidding. So I could like, because hip hop was such a big thing. You had like, Tupac and Biggie coming up, and like old school groups. Run DMC was just kind of really starting, and the music scene in the 80s, even with some of the rock and stuff like that, was great. Like it's so much music and freedom, and the government. I'm writing a song called "What Happened to Canada." And see if I have one of the lines. I'm writing one out that a lot of people are not gonna like at all. I remember growing up in the 90s before sexuality defined me, when we had privacy, the government was corrupt but did crime quietly. Now they let sick-minded tyrants free. So like I was writing about like how when we were younger, it's like, yeah, the government was an issue, but most people didn't notice it. Everyone lived pretty well. You could most times live off of one income. You know what I mean? And you could, there's more freedom and just joy. And you watch these 80s movies, bro, and it looks like, what a time, man. Just like the fun outfits, and everyone's careless and just living their lives. They're not consumed by the internet. And obviously then in the 80s, there's like the horror movies. Just like there's so many good slasher films and horror movies in general that were being created in the 80s and 90s, and I just wish I was like a teenager at that time. I think it would have been great.
Yeah, it's weird because obviously we're on the internet right now. Like if anybody's listening to this or watching this, obviously we're doing it through the internet. So like without that, we wouldn't be able to do this. But I do definitely agree that I don't know. I feel like the invention of stuff like that has taken some of the magic out of even something as simple as movies. It's just not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I remember even being like, when we would have been younger and you're going to the video store, it was like this event kind of.
Kids will never understand.
like
Yeah.
something you look forward to, and it was just like you know, you may spend like maybe an hour walking around because you need to be somewhat sure of what you're going to rent, because you can't
Yes.
just like watch 5 minutes and say, oh, I don't like that, I'm gonna go back.
You have to finish it. And if for some reason a new film came out and you're super excited about it and it didn't have what I had, it was like the little sticky tag and the convenience stores, where it's like if the tag was gone, all like tags were gone, you'd have to wait
Yep.
until somebody brought the movie back. So you have to wait till the next week to see if you get it going early enough, especially when they had new releases out. What a time. I kind of miss that time where like you like come in and you're like maybe going to rent a movie at like 7 o'clock and all the good movies were rented. So you'd have to like go back into like find some like shitty 80s or 90s movie that like you thought might be okay. And it was just a different time. And nowadays, you know,
What's with kids today, huh? No respect.
very true.
It's somewhat true. Like, I mean, I have a nearly 9-year-old boy, and I was trying to explain that concept to him, that
Yeah.
like before, you know, we couldn't just go like, oh, I want to put on whatever Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah.
Like he's
Yeah.
enjoying that at the minute, and I'm like,
Oh,
yeah,
that's fun. I love that show.
yeah. Now I will say we've watched the entire series, I think twice at this point.
That's funny.
But it was something I remember enjoying as a kid. But I was trying to explain to him
Yeah.
when that was like a thing. I was like, if I wasn't like, I don't know, home from school or whatever it was at the time, and I missed that episode, like I couldn't just go click
Yeah. And go back.
and go back. Like I had missed that episode. I was like, well, gotta get the TV guide whenever it's on again. I can see it.
Now everyone just wants to be coddled in their safe spaces. Like I gotta feel safe in my space. It's like, man, I grew up rougher than any generations growing up now, unless you were living in an impoverished place, which I know that there's tons of that now since nobody can afford anything. But like we grew up just running around the streets, breaking into factories that were abandoned and tons of stuff. You know, we broke into a ball bearing factory. And this is that time, and we're like, it was like 12, spraying. We sprayed very shitty graffiti of like Sex Pistols and the anarchy symbol. And then we found we found a fire extinguisher the first day we broke in this factory. This big ass fire extinguisher, and then we let it off. Didn't know what was going to happen, and it covered the entire property and started going into other people's, like into the neighborhood. This huge cloud of white smoke, and all I hear is what the fuck, and like so we started running. And my pant, I was wearing big baggy pants because I was a fucking loser, looking like some kid that listened to fucking Korn and Limp Bizkit. And my pant got stuck on the fence, and I was hanging upside down. And only one of my friends came back and got me, or I would have been fucked.
That's
What a
a
time.
real friend.
Yeah, I know. What a time. And this is what this stuff reminds me of, right? Like, I really enjoy doing the commentaries, which you guys will have probably heard commentary on Nightmare on Elm Street 4, and we've recorded 5. All we have is 6 to go. But there'll be, if you guys really do enjoy them, we will do all of them. Like, we can always go back and later on in the show and cover even number 2, the gayest one of all time. So, do we want to start getting into it a little bit? I was excited for Scream. I feel like I'm more excited for this.
Yeah, I felt like when Scream came around, I was like, I don't know if there's gonna be another deep dive that we're gonna do that I'm gonna maybe care about as much.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we started to toy with the idea of this and the closer it got, I was like, wait, actually, I think I might prefer Nightmare on Elm Street more than I do Scream.
I love Scream. Always will. One of my favorite horror movies. That's you know, I was a kid, and I've said this story before. My mom took away my horror movies because she thinks it was mentally damaging me, which I don't know, could be true.
Boo.
So I lost all my VHS tapes that I collected when I was like younger and stuff like that. No idea what she did with them. She probably did what those parents did during like Detroit Rock City and just like burn them outside, and like, all the other parents are clapping while they're smoking cigarettes and drinking brandy and stuff. Just like Nancy's mom, how she's like psychotic and is constantly like drinking and stuff to like numb her pain of killing a child molester that molested all the kids, I guess, in the neighborhood. Her guilt, but it's like, why you feel guilty, bro?
Yeah,
You
it's such a there's some weird
You
characters
should take
actually
that
throughout
approach
this
more often,
franchise.
maybe.
I suppose, yeah, we'll jump in straight away to the original. So, A Nightmare on Elm Street is a classic horror film released in 1984, directed by Wes Craven. It became a highly successful franchise and is considered one of the most influential horror movies of all time. So we have some basic information. Release date November 9th, 1984. A runtime of 91 minutes. Produced by New Line Cinema. Distributed by New Line. For a budget of 1.8 million, which I would have said was that kind of hefty back in the 80s? 1.8 million.
Seems like it. That
Um,
seems like a pretty decent budget. But if you
yeah.
look at when we talk about the effects and stuff, it's pretty good.
Box office return of $57 million, which
That's
is
pretty good.
probably really good at the
Very good.
time. So yeah, to give a kind of I guess a basic outline of the plot, the film follows a group of teenagers living on Elm Street who are haunted in their dreams by a disfigured serial killer named Freddy Krueger. Freddy has the ability to kill his victims in their dreams, leading to their deaths in the real world. As the teenagers try to stay awake to avoid him, they discover the dark secrets of their pasts and uncover the truth behind his real existence. Which
It's
is,
so funny because like when I was a kid and I was like watching these movies and obsessed with Freddy Krueger and Friday the 13th, which will definitely be coming as a deep dive because I need to bring back your love of those movies because I love Friday the 13th. It's ridiculously good, all of them in my opinion. And I feel like we'll have to do definitely some commentaries together
oh yeah,
just for the sure fun of it, the pure fun of it. But like I remember, like I could convince Freddie that I'm his friend, and I was like, in my head, I'm like, what was I thinking as a kid? Where I'm like, if he tried to actually attack me, I would just like convince him that I'm like cool like he is. And then it's meanwhile he's like, oh yeah, come be my partner, killing all these kids. And then you think he's really gonna care at the end? He's gonna be throwing me on his burnt ass bed and being like, bend over, little boy, like Michael Jackson, be like, let me stare at your asshole. Sorry, everybody.
but it's kind of funny to hear you say that. But I actually probably had similar thoughts in the sense of I was like, oh yeah, but he'll know that I think he's really cool and I think he's the hero.
So stupid.
So like it'll be fine if he ever like comes across me. I'll be like, hey bro, I like all your stuff, man. I was like,
Like how
so
you murder those children.
it's like so
So
fucking
so
stupid. Like,
strange. Oh
um,
man.
some of the main cast, Heather Langenkamp plays Nancy Thompson, who's obviously like the big final girl of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger, John Saxton as Lieutenant Donald Thompson, Johnny Depp as
Pretty good.
Glenn,
Yeah, Glenn,
um,
bro. Glenda, his
Ronnie
first role.
Blakely as Marge Thompson. It's a really weird character, but um, yeah, I had written some stuff out about like I guess the legacy of Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean it was such a, looking back now, I guess it was so influential in the genre and in film, I guess in general. Like you had
Yeah.
so many sequels, a TV series, comic books, video games, the remake in 2010.
Which we'll be
Um,
getting to all that eventually. I remember just slightly seeing the TV series when I was younger. I'm gonna see if I can find it somewhere online and watch it for the next deep dive because we can kind of end it on that after like the sixth movie. Because I have the whole DVD set and I was looking at the special features and it said like the Nightmare series or whatever, and it's nothing to do with that. It's like just like you have to go through these. It's kind of cool, but you have to like go through these rooms to find out through the labyrinth or whatever, and you get like special interviews. And I just went to the index and then started watching stuff instead of like going through this whole puzzle, like trying to find the lock to the door. I don't even know how that goes, and it seems confusing for a DVD.
it's
And it
cool
didn't
that
have the
they even made
series
the effort
show.
to do that. I
Yeah, it's
actually think
cool.
I might have the series on DVD, you know. I think I
I
actually
have it on Blu-ray too. I just can't find the Blu-ray because I feel like that the Blu-ray may have the TV series.
I
Uh,
feel like maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that a lot of those episodes are now on YouTube.
oh yeah, I'm gonna check it out just for shits and giggles, you know. Hee hee tee hee.
Um, I think that the character of Freddy Krueger is probably even bigger than the franchise itself. I mean, he's become, for me anyway, he's become like a Chucky. There's a couple of those. I think the characters that talk, especially. seemed to kind of nearly transcend, because like these motherfuckers were showing up on like TV shows and they were on talk shows and different shit like that. I mean, Chucky done a WCW like promo
Oh
thing
yeah.
and whatever. Like it was just
We're getting to
wild.
Freddy versus Jason, where they had them like it's a boxing match.
Yeah, like it was
Which
just
that's gonna be its own thing.
you know, there was so many cool things like that, and he became so iconic. Like you know, the burned face, obviously the striped sweaters, the fedora, the glove especially, and then it basically saved New Line Cinema, and that it became, I suppose, within like internally, it was known as the house that Freddy built.
Yeah.
It basically gave them their entire existence, and for me anyway, it's one of those landmark horror films that's like, I don't know if it's just left an impact on horror, but like on film as a whole, and especially in that era, to be able to pull off some of the stuff like you have like supernatural, you have psychological kind of suspense, you have some like underlying creepy tones. They've done a lot of things there that I think that at the time period they were in was probably a little bit sketchy.
Yeah, and probably pushing stuff, considering they're supposed to be like young teens, because they're supposed to be like, how old's Nancy? They're supposed to be like in high school, but maybe like 15 or something like that, I would assume. And I feel like they're probably pushing the envelope on some stuff, and it could have been worse though. And I feel like they probably, I don't know, from what I hear from Wes Craven, they kind of they were gonna add more of like the element of him being a fucking pedophile, and then they just took it out because it was kind of too much. But even them doing it on Elm Street is like pure Americana, you know. Just every town has an Elm Street,
and I feel like he's mentioned that multiple times as well in interviews about he always kind of wanted to bring back that element of him being like some kind of child molester or whatever, but it never really happened.
Yeah, which we've talked about that we're gonna make a short film. We're gonna hire an actual. Just kidding. Release him from jail for a fucking week, and he can film with us. But like even Kennedy, who was shot on Elm Street, very strange.
Do you want to hear some of the taglines for the movie?
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to give you some, right, and I want you to pick your favorite out of all of these. I want you to pick your best, and I want you to pick your worst.
Okay.
All right. So we have, she is the only one who can stop it. If she fails, nobody survives. It's pretty bad, in fairness.
Sounds a little weird.
If Nancy doesn't wake up screaming, she won't wake up at all.
That's the more famous one.
Yeah. The kids of Elm Street don't know it yet, but something is coming to get them in their dreams. It's pretty generic.
Sounds a little dirty, in my opinion.
Yeah.
A little dirty.
A scream that wakes you up might be your own. Okay.
By your finger in yourself?
You won't be sleeping alone.
That's a little creepy. A lot of these are just like kind of creepy, like.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep or you'll meet the terrifying Freddy.
That's lackluster.
A lot of them are actually, I thought they were going to be better.
Yeah, they're not that great.
Every town has an Elm Street.
Yes, it does.
I will say he's coming in your dreams or something, whatever that one was. I like that one.
So is that the kids of Elm Street don't know it yet, but something is coming to get them into their dreams.
Yeah. Anyway, it's spelled with a C-U-M, right?
Yeah. Coming as in like coming, like make the white stuff.
The last one you said
out.
was definitely the worst.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep or you'll meet the terrifying Freddy.
Yeah, it's just not thought out well. You know what I mean?
Especially for like a non-established character at that point. Like Freddy Krueger wasn't this big established character either, so it was just kind of like
who the fuck's that guy?
Yeah, like that's like, you know, you could put any name there. It's like, oh, you'll meet the terrifying John.
Yeah, I know exactly, and it's funny because like even when I was watching the first one in the credits, I kind of said that it was like it says Robert Englund as Fred Krueger, and then I'm sure in every other film it was as Freddy and you want to get into Wes Craven, you know, because unless you want me to tackle that, because Wes Craven, like where he got his inspiration for Freddy
Yeah, no, go
is
ahead.
fairly interesting. So according to him, at least the look of him is Wes Craven was a young boy, and he lived in like an apartment building, and heard some scuffling around outside, and then looked out his window and saw this man standing there, and then almost like the guy knew that he was there, looked at the window and stared at Wes as a little boy. And then Wes kind of backed up, scared shitless, I'm sure, and waited. And he said he counted to like 100 or 200. He can't remember. He's like, he just waiting. And then when he went back, the guy was still standing there. How creepy is that? And then as he was walking away, the guy was consistently watching Wes and like looking back, almost side eyeing him. And he saw him
weird.
go so crazy. And he was dressed like what we would think Krueger is dressed like, with this weird cowboy kind of hat. Not really a fedora, but I don't know what you'd call this hat that I'm wearing, not gonna lie. And he put his ear against the door and heard like the apartment door closing, like as the guy came in, and then he woke everybody up, and his brother got up with a baseball bat and went looking for the guy, I guess, and like scared the whole house. And then there's other stories of like where he got the total inspiration for the idea of of Freddy Krueger, because that is just one element of it. Because he also like took the stories of like the dream, from he was seeing little clips of people dying in their dreams, and he saved them, he said, like news articles, and that was interesting and not enough to have a story on. But then he found one about like this family, if you want to bring it up, I can't remember, because it's a family of like Puerto Rican or there's some ethnicity, and they were Colombian and from like a war torn country or something like that, and they came over and lived in California. And because of what the boy saw, he was like traumatized, and then he just couldn't sleep. And then do you have it? Can you up at all? Because he kept like a coffee pot in his he kept a coffee pot in his closet, and like wouldn't sleep, and like obviously at one point was like, I can't sleep anymore or I'm gonna have these terrifying nightmares. And then eventually he died of a heart attack, or not even a heart attack, because even according to the story is when he died in his sleep, and the parents had an autopsy done, and they can't explain how this kid died.
And there's a lot of different like, and they all kind of center, I guess, around the same uh kind of story. Like, but there's a lot of different things cited as like the reason.
We should
Um,
do an episode on that for your show,
yeah.
of like just a small little, and if the fans want that, that'd be pretty exciting. I would be down for that. Is to bring up different articles of people that have maybe died in their sleep, or like
So,
died from a nightmare.
um, Craven said that he was struck for inspiration for the Dream Killer when he found an article in the LA Times. The article was about a Cambodian family coming to America to escape
Yeah.
mass genocide in the killing fields. They made it to the US and all was fine until the young boy in the family was terrified to sleep because he felt that if he slept he would be killed by something chasing him. He forced himself to stay awake for days at a time and eventually died in the middle of a nightmare. This became the basis for the movie, but it also wasn't the only article that he said he saw during his research. There were 3 other articles about unexplained deaths of those from the same region in Cambodia. None of the articles connected the deaths together, even though they were all eerily similar. The last of the men dying in their sleep was found, this is the one you were talking about, was found with a Mr. Coffee maker in his closet and discarded
Mr.
sleeping
Coffee.
pills that he never took. This isn't the first case of Southeast Asia refugees dying in their sleep, however. Many young men of the country were falling asleep to their deaths due to a fatal ailment. This was eventually named sudden unexplained nocturnal death syndrome. The ailment affected young men between 20 and 30 from a certain ethnic group who were persecuted in Cambodia after they were recruited by the CIA and agreed to fight in the North Vietnamese in the Vietnam War between 1978 and 1981, there were 13 nocturnal deaths from the very same region. Weird, man. During the year 1981, 26 men died from the same reason. Many victims were found dead, but if medics arrived in time, the men were found with their hearts contracting obscenely fast.
See, and I'm going to bring a little bit of the strange brew into this, but I don't know. It's very weird and coincidental, and I do believe in dark forces and energies. And when I came back from Cuba, everybody go listen to the Shadow People episode on Strange Brew. You might get offended. Me and Billy do make fun of indigenous names a little bit. It was just kidding around. We got a bad review for doing that. Someone's like, I'm so excited to listen to the Shadow People episode. I didn't like how you said this or that. And it's just like, it's dark humor. We're kidding around. That's the whole point of the show. But we also have an episode about the Hat Man coming out fairly soon that it was Shane from Inquires of Reality, which should be fun for the fans. But I don't know. When I went to Cuba and I had this traumatic experience, and then it led to me seeing Shadow People. And one of the most frightening experiences I've ever had in my entire life. It felt like something followed me home. That's what it felt like. It felt like there was this negative energy in Cuba, especially on the last night when the whole chaos broke out. My friend drank too much and you guys balls grabbed by Russians. It's a fun story, so go back and listen to the Shadow People episode. But it literally felt like something followed me from Cuba and then plagued my life for a while. And I would have like nightmares, and the house where I lived at was on this street called 13 Bailey. And it was like the fact that our house is named 13. There's always dark energy surrounding that house for years. Felt like I was cursed. So imagine if you have this imprint in time of like these traumatic events during a war or a genocide, and they're killing people. And I don't know the full story of the Cambodian genocide. I would actually be curious to learn about it, because there's certain times in history where there's been these killing fields. But you have this traumatic event, and if you think that these dark energies or resonancies exist, then they would kind of capture people, and especially younger people. And if there is these dark demons, reptilians, whatever you want to call them, that do exist outside of our eyesight, that exhume our energy, I imagine something so traumatic that it traumatizes tons of kids and adults and all this stuff. And this thing feeds off of young, vibrant energy, as David Icke says, and all these other people. So imagine all that stuff happens, and then this thing follows, or these energies follow certain people and actually use their energy because they're so scared. And then, eventually they kill them and drag them into the afterlife or into the underworld or whatever you want to call it. What do you think?
I mean, a lot of times I don't even like thinking about that stuff, because I'm like, part of me is like, am I like inviting things in? So I don't really know where, like.
Hey, I spent a lot of time playing the Ouija board, and I feel like that also comes to me.
Like, I don't want to say one way or the other, but like, I feel like there's enough of it there for me to be like, oh, don't even want to get involved.
Yeah, and that's why I've definitely felt the darkness. The darkness, you merely adopted it. I was born in it. Played the Ouija board for it, or whatever, right? So and I will probably attempt to use the Ouija board again in a haunted location while we're filming stuff. And I think because my energy is different, and because I consume magic mushrooms, which allows you to see it and stuff. Interesting story, just offshoot just a little bit. I was listening to Bobby Lee and Andrew Santino talking about when Andrew did mushrooms and they went to a haunted house, not a real one, which I think would be interesting. I've always thought, like, imagine going to a haunted location. Like, we had this old hotel that people have supposed to be caught like paranormal events at in this town over that I kind of grew up in. I said to Billy, I was like, we should rent a room one night, get out the Ouija board and maybe the spirit box, and try to attempt to call something. But I couldn't imagine being on mushrooms because you're on a different frequency. So you could see things that you think are real, but I've never hallucinated in that way. But they're saying how they went to like a haunted house. And meanwhile, like, he's like scared shitless. Everyone's around him. Like, and he's like, these chicks are like grabbing onto him. And I'm like, I would never in a million years do mushrooms to go through a fucking, like a haunted attraction.
Oof. That sounds like torture, to be honest.
And it's just weird because I don't know. Part of me like thinks that there's something about this, and we can talk about it. I think it'd be fun to do it almost like on for your show because it's connected to like the real story of these movies. But I'm sure there's people out there that are maybe listening right now that have had weird experiences, felt weird energy, seen some weird saws. I saw it. I saw it. Saw some weird shit. You know what I mean? So like I don't know. It's kind of and I feel like when I hear Wes Craven talk about this stuff, it's almost like he was influenced to do these movies. Like something was pushing him to create this. I don't know. Maybe that's just my own thoughts, but
When you think of some of the stuff that he has created as well, kind of wild.
well, look at John Carpenter with like They Live. He knew some shit, bro. And we definitely have to talk about that. Sure, that's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I don't know. It's very weird how people can come to some conclusions and create some cinema that seems very related to the stuff that is going on in the world. You know, very strange.
Yeah, it's and especially back then, like it's so long ago now. I
Do you
did
know
have
that?
what are you gonna say?
I was going to say that the name Freddy was based on a bully that beat up Wes Craven.
Yep. And I think that also appeared in Last House on the Left as well. There was a character called Fred, and
I've seen that movie once, and
there was
that's
another
all.
character called Krug.
Oh, interesting. Really?
Yeah, and then that's where that came from. That must
What?
be
I did
weird
not know that.
to be that dude, and like if he's still alive, or I'm assuming he was alive at some point, and to hear this Wes Craven guy who's now like a multi-million-dollar Hollywood director with all these famous, like literally historic movies, and like he's going like, oh yeah, this dickhead who used to bully me is the fucking
Because his dad was beating him and molesting him, so he was lashing out. Like, because that's most times would.
If that was you, would you try and monetize that and be like, hey, I'm the original Freddy Krueger?
Maybe nowadays, especially people probably would. But it's interesting too, because like even that name Krueger, you hear it sometimes. It's not often. But when I see someone with the last name Krueger, I'm like, ooh, cool. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I'd name my kid Freddy just for the fuck of it. You know?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, I did have a little bit more actually. I didn't realize about that whole idea of how we came up with it. Obviously, we talked about this particular area in Cambodia. These people had come over, and the whole reason that all happened. I started to kind of dig into the background of that. So they came to the US to escape the reign of the former Cambodian prime minister, who it's funny actually we might actually dive into this maybe on your show because I thought he was quite an interesting character. He was responsible for one of the most brutal and devastating genocides in history during his time in power, leading to the death of between 1.7 and 2.5 million people. He wiped out one quarter of the entire population of Cambodia within 12 months.
Is there a reason why he did that? I guess we'll find out if we do it.
Yeah, there's like I read way more about it and I listened to a couple of podcasts and documentaries. This dude was wild, and some of his like stuff that he used to do to like torture people and shit was just fucking. I don't know how I've never heard of him before, but
me neither. Considering all the stuff that I looked into.
Apparently that was another like kind of thing that they were looking at tying into it. These people that moved to the States within 12 to 18 months of being in the States, 3 men had died in basically the exact same way, but in completely unrelated circumstances. So like they didn't have anything to do with each other, they didn't know each other, but like they found that they were from the same region. Autopsy results revealed that they had not died from heart failure, but simply just died while in the middle of a nightmare or dream. Medical authorities have since called the phenomenon Asian death syndrome, a variant of sudden unexpected death syndrome. Weird.
China.
That's all you're going to say?
Asian death syndrome. I can't do a good Trump, but that's what it reminds me of.
It does actually.
It is fucking weird because, like, I don't know. I've done a lot of research into the astral world, and I'm sure if we ever talk about Insidious, like I'll get into it a little bit more. But like, it is kind of crazy. Imagine like dying in your dreams. I've heard stories about people that die have a heart attack, get hit by a car, whatever, crash their car, and then they don't realize that they're dead. And I've heard this from psychics and stuff like that, and different stories of people that are able to tap into that realm supposedly. And you're in the middle of a dream and then you die. And imagine you feel like you're stuck in that dream state and for however long till you maybe realize, because I feel like I've said this before on the show that like once you like reach the astral world, you might not even know that you're dead because you're in so much shock. And then I've heard stories of people like that are dead trying to talk to like people around them that are still alive, but they don't know that they're dead. Like crazy stories. So imagine if you're in a dream and then you die within your dream and then you think you're still in the dream state and you just like never can wake up. The final sleep.
Yeah. It's
Weird thought, eh?
and it's kind of when you think about it more and more, like our next door neighbor, she's had cancer for quite a while now. She hasn't been well, but she died 2 days ago. And I was talking to one of her daughters, and she said, I was like, was she like, was she conscious? Was she talking, or like what? And she was like, yeah, she was like sitting up in the bed, and they asked her, they were like, oh, do you want a drink or anything like that? You want something to eat? She was like, no, I'm good. I'm just very tired. They were like, all right, okay. And then they said like she had this like just like stare. She's just like staring at the end of the bed. And then she goes, oh, here he is now coming to get me. And then and then she just went like this. And
wow, that's
just like
scary.
it wasn't in any pain, wasn't in anything. And like they're convinced because apparently like a couple of times recently she's talked like her husband died probably 15, 16 years ago. And there's a couple of times she's been like, oh, here's Danny now, or I can hear I was talking to Danny and stuff like that. And now some people could put it down to, look, she was on morphine, she was in a lot of pain, she's probably just like hallucinating and talking shit. But then the other side of me is like, is there something there though? Like she's literally right before she died, she says, oh, here he is now coming to get me anyway. In like not in like a scary like, oh, here he's gonna. It was more like he's here to collect me kind of, or as if like she was talking about somebody she knew.
Yeah, so I've heard this many times, and like even Chelsea's, I think, grandmother or grandfather had the same experience where they were seeing family members that have passed on, and like people can claim it's from the bucket DMT in your brain, but I don't believe that shit. I think that there is some connection to the other side, like even Kevin Smith, the famous director that some people like and some people hate, that made Jay and Silent Bob and Clerks. He talks about his mother had a heart attack. And she was like, there's no pain, Tiger. She saw her like float above her body and stuff. So there's this idea, to get back into my favorite, for people that can see the background of the Strange Brew logo, my favorite creatures, the reptilians. Supposedly if you see a family member coming to get you, that's good. That if you see someone that is passed on, they're bringing you to the other side, that's probably a good sign. But if you see some sort of religious deity, Jesus or Muhammad or whoever, that is supposed to be, or some angel, it is the reptilians using that as the disguise to bring you into their world, to take your soul in some sort of way, to be used upon, fed upon, or just to maybe take you back into the endless cycle of reincarnation on this planet, because we are a slave race of human beings. Just a little, but like that's one of the theories. Just in case is that it would be if someone's. Yeah, if someone thinks they see Jesus when they're dying, you better tell them that that's not Jesus. It's not Jesus coming to get you, okay? Probably a lizard person. Fun stuff.
Right after they take it, they just rip their head off, and it's just a big giant like it looks like fucking Doc Connors from fucking Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You fucking crazy, man. You sound insane. Do you realize that?
Yes, I know.
Original concepts actually for Freddy were supposed to be way more gruesome. They had there was some sketches and different things made out where they had like I guess similar to if you remember like the Mummy, the 99 Mummy film, and when he's like regenerating and you can see like his teeth like through his cheek. They wanted to have that. That'd be
kind of cool.
Yeah, they wanted to have that like a thing, and like the flesh was going to be like all dangling and hanging off and like gooey, and They wanted like pus coming
Didn't
from
have enough
his
money for it.
from his burns and shit. They
Yeah.
wanted like pus seeping out of him, and they wanted him to have like obviously it happens. I think in number 2, he rips his fucking scalp off, but they wanted him to have
Yeah.
like an exposed skull brain thing. But I don't know. Like I listened to a couple of different people talk, and they were like, obviously number 1 was money, and then it was just like I guess logistically, like, does this make sense to try and do this every day? Is this going to work? And I think it just ended up, they just kind of scrapped the whole thing.
Yeah, and it would have been kind of cool. I did say to you that I think the makeup in the first one is actually creepy and does look well done compared to some of the other ones. But even just to quickly get into like the sweater, because as we're gonna bring it into the first movie, like when they designed the sweater, the red green was an optical effect, or like it actually messed with the camera, and for some reason Wes Craven liked that, which I think is kind of
Yeah, because I think, and that was something that was then looked up, and they realized that the contrast between red and green or something like that, or whatever it was like they were like the 2 worst. So they
colors
purposely
to
done,
see on camera.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they purposely done that then, which is kind of cool, I guess, in a way. It's like, how
Yeah.
can we make this as like horrible and revolting to look at as possible without even realizing?
Well, even the glove too is supposed to be based on like animals. Like I don't know if you have anything on it, but according, it's something to do with like the glove coming from an animal, and the idea of like claws, and then they like want to kind of do it as something a little more realistic that he was able to create on his own in his like basement or the boiler room, and they even talk about like serial killers and werewolves and stuff like that in certain interviews for inspiration, because eventually we will maybe get to it. We mentioned it once on our werewolf episode that me and Billy did, but there was a serial killer that like used like metal claws way back in the day. I think in like the late 1800s, something like that. And he made a claw or made jaws that were like an animal, and people thought it was a wolf killing people, but it was this psychopath.
It's kind of freaky, to be honest, that you would
I
even
know.
think to do that.
I got an episode about Irish werewolves, so that would be fun one day. They're all wasted on fucking whiskey, beating up each other.
They all seen things that they should have saw.
Yeah. And even this poster, for the next deep dive, I'm gonna switch up the studio, take down my mushroom, big tarp, and then have the expose my poster of A Nightmare on Elm Street, which I've said numerous times. Like the poster, I don't know if you have it, one with it doesn't even look like Nancy. The original poster where the claws over top of her, and Freddy's got like the kind of, he looks almost like a robot, kind of like animatronic a little bit. This one, the poster that we're showing for all the audio listeners, is like the blue one, one of the main posters when it first came out, and actually looks like Nancy. But the other poster does not. It just looks like a scared chick. Yeah, that one. And he looks, you know what I mean? He looks kind of like a robot kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, it's weird looking.
Weird. Look at that fucking. Is that an Asian one? What is with that fucking one at the bottom? Doesn't even look like her at all.
I know, yeah.
Even the other one doesn't.
I just
I've
tried
never
to
seen
find
that
like
one.
some fucking random weird ones. Like that's why people need to check out the video aspect of this as well, because we will be showing some like strange
It'll
stuff.
be on both of our channels, so check out like First Class Horror. And when you look it up on YouTube, look it up all in one word: First Class Horror. It's very easy to find if you do that, or Strange Fruit Podcast, because I'll release this stuff too, and because our deep dives on Scream did get a good amount of views between our 2 channels. But like that one is kind of fucking weird. But like that poster, I'm telling you, that face, that look on her face when and this happened, told you, it happened numerous times where I've been on mushrooms, and just to see what things look like, I'll go into my podcast studio because I have like posters on the wall, and Chucky always kind of freaks me out because he's usually sitting in the corner. It looks like, there's times I've been on mushrooms and it almost looks like he's like moving his eyes. It's just so slight that it's fucking scary. But that poster, her staring, looks like she's staring into my soul, because it like almost like looks like it's vibrating a bit, and almost like 3D. Mushrooms are an interesting thing because you don't actually see what people think you see. You don't see like people like, you don't see like, I don't know, you don't see things like It's so hard to explain for someone that's never experienced mushrooms, but you see like 3D translucent like patterns is the best way I would describe it. And then things seem to have like a vibration, like it pops out a little more. They have different colors to them, and that poster always like I one day I stared at it and I was like, whoa, enough of that, because it looked like she was staring into my soul.
And even like the look of him at the top of it, I always stare at that and I'm
Yeah,
like, I can't even really make
weird.
out. I'm like, where's his head or like what? It's like his
I don't even know
glove, but
why.
it's like where's his face or what
And the
part of him?
glove is not the way that they have it in the movie, and it's like this is obviously the first interpretation and it's the most famous poster, and it's just like it doesn't even look like him. You know what I mean? Like I don't even
It's
know what
weird,
it's
man.
supposed to. It's very weird. Yeah, I just want to say that poster always freaked me out. I'll have it in display on the next deep dive. But this is I don't know, this movie like changed the horror game, and like I love the original. It was creepy, and I remember like actually sitting down and watching it probably with my buddy Austin that I've mentioned before. He's the one I always watched horror movies with when we were young. And I don't know, there's something like I just love it was creepy, and I have my thoughts written out, but if you want to get into like um the details of the film, the more there's a word that I'm looking for. I just can't fucking think of it.
Yeah, like I mean, to talk about I guess Freddy another bit. I had the stuff about his makeup and how they wanted him to look. I was listening
Yeah.
to the commentary track for the first movie on the DVD box set, and
Yeah.
Robert Englund said that he based Freddy's physicality on Klaus Kinski's performance in Nosferatu from 1979. In his
Oh yeah,
opinion,
I remember hearing
the
that.
backstory for Freddy came from a childhood experience. On Valentine's Day in school, everyone made cards for each other, but there was one boy who didn't receive anything. Robert Englund theorized that this boy went on to become Freddy Krueger. Which is kind of fucking weird and random.
That's really weird.
That's just like
I
his
would have.
internal, like nobody told him that was an
Yeah.
experience that he had, and it was just like this internal, like, imagine that kid went on to turn out to be like this.
I'm kind of excited to do number 6. People may not like it. I've always enjoyed it. The makeup could have been better. There's some very fun scenes in that film, but when you have who's that freak that plays his father? He makes all that loud music that the parents in the 80s could not stand. God, I can't think of this. Uh, oh, it's gonna bother me, man. Who is that? What's that douchebag's name? Someone's screaming at the radio right now.
Radio? What's that?
um. Oh, this is gonna bother. I can see his face in my head. Alice Cooper. God, I had to think of Alice in Chains first, and I was like, that's not it. Alice Cooper. When Alice Cooper plays his father, and you should like, and he beats him, and stuff like that. And we'll get into it when we discuss the second deep dive. But like, it kind of showed like if Freddy is this if he's this molesting monster man, that you would think that it was because he was molested and tortured and beat and stuff like that. That usually produces serial killers in some cases. Obviously, not like people like Ted Bundy and all that stuff, which who knows if he was possessed by some sort of evil demonic force. But it is kind of, you would think Freddy Krueger as a character, if he was a real person, would have probably been physically and verbally and mentally abused as a child, and then it caused him to whoever his dad, his parents, or whatever created a monster out of him because of their own mental health. You know what I mean?
It's it's something I think that's like it has untapped potential as well. Still,
Yeah.
that aspect of the backstory or the origin there, I think there's a lot of fun things that you could potentially do with that. I wouldn't be surprised.
If
Eh,
Blumhouse fucking tries to do it and then destroys it and makes it
I
awful.
swear to God, if they get their hands on fucking Nightmare on Elm Street, I'm gonna kill myself.
I don't know, fuck, man.
Um,
Unalive yourself.
the get blocked from YouTube and everything. Yeah, then like to touch on what you were saying, in that commentary as well, Craven talks about the colors for the sweater was actually
Yeah.
originally red and yellow, and
That would be weird.
Yeah, the
Like
original,
McDonald's, man.
the
Ba,
original
ba,
one that
ba,
they had
ba,
made
ba, I'm molesting you.
was fucking red and yellow, and then, like you said, I think they had another one that was red and green, and after they tested them, they realized that the red and green was kind of like off-putting and weird, and then they looked more into it, and
Yeah.
apparently there was a study done by scientificamerica.com, and they had said like that when they look back, those two colors are like apparently like the worst to have like contrasting with each other on like a film camera.
It's
Um,
kind of funny.
the idea for the glove, they wanted to make something cheap and easy to transport, and they mixed this in with the research into primal fears embedded in the subconscious, and that attacks by
Yeah.
animal claws was at the top of the list for the public.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting. And you think uh we supposedly the fears of your ancestors get embedded into your like literal DNA, and there's also the thought if you're afraid of snakes in this life, it's probably because in a past life you were attacked by one. There's theories like that too, and the idea that our one primal instinct when we were in a you know back in the day, what our ancestors were having to face, um you know what I mean, was to you would have to worry about animal attacks. You'd have someone stay up all night, like one of the men, to protect the women and children, and you would the fear of a tiger or some sort of predatory animal coming into your camp, or your I don't know what you I'm trying to think, your tribe, your like it's all that, yeah, that's what you would the biggest fear would be. You know what I mean? You probably have some monkeys trying to steal your food, some fun shit like that. But like your biggest fear would be some sort of predatory animal that needs to survive and needs to eat. So he comes and attacks, easy prey, women and children. I'm sure that many times children were being dragged into the forest by a panther or something like that. And then that fear gets embedded into the human subconscious for like ever.
Yeah, and it's strange because when I read that and I heard them saying that in the commentary, I was like, I'm not saying that something like that doesn't scare me, but I was kind of going, huh, I never really thought of it, to be honest. Like, I never
No.
thought that I had a fear of something like that. But then I was like, yeah, maybe I do. Like, I've always had this fear of being stabbed. This sounds really weird. I think we've said this
Yeah, yeah.
before. We talked about something like
Definitely
this.
I'd scream.
And, like, the idea to me, not that I want either of them to happen to me, but I always had this thing where I was like, oh, I'd much rather be shot than I would stabbed.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
me
that
too.
idea of being like stabbed and like having your skin sliced open and being able to like
Yeah.
look down and see it.
Yeah, and obviously, we've seen horrific acts, and because we both have done deep dives into serial killers, of that idea of like them doing it for pleasure, meanwhile the victim is dying in a very grotesque way, and the idea of like a blade puncturing your flesh, like this vessel, this body that we have with all the different organs and things, and how even a little cut can fucking hurt on your finger. So I couldn't imagine even being slashed up by very sharp razor claws, and being attacked by an animal. Everyone thinks they can survive, but that's not necessarily true. Billy claimed that he thinks he could fuck up a monkey. First he said he could probably
I don't
defend
think
himself
so.
against a bear, and I was like, you could not win against a bear. Okay, that was on the haunted animals episode, the ghostly encounters of animals or whatever. And he's like, yeah, and I was like, no, this thing would just maul you to death. And he's like, I could take out a monkey. I was like, you know how strong like even like orangutans and chimpanzees are? Like they
So
can
I
like tear
was
your arms out of their sockets.
this is a good few years ago. I was pretty young at the time. I was in a place, it's like at the I think is it the southern tip between like where Spain meets Africa.
Okay.
It's a place called, I think it's actually um it's run by the United Kingdom as far as I'm aware. It's Gibraltar, and they have like
Yeah.
the rock of Gibraltar or whatever, and
Yeah.
it's like this
That
kind of
sounds
weird mountain,
familiar.
and like all these fucking monkeys basically live wildly on it.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And like you can take these bus tours, they bring you way up, and it's like a I guess the road that goes up this kind of mountain thing, it only has room for like one of these shitty little buses at a
Yeah.
time. But we
Ah,
get up there
man.
anyway, and like part of the tour is like, they give you fucking peanuts or like bags of fucking stuff, and they're like, oh, you give them to the monkeys, feed the monkeys, and get your photographs, and it's all great and lovely. But then they
So
also
you're
tell you,
dragged off.
yeah, but then they also tell you, be careful, don't let your kids get like, all the adults need to keep them. Don't give them to your kids. Don't don't mess with like stuff in your pockets. Don't try and open the bags, hiding them and stuff like that, because they'll pick up on it and freak out. Look after your possessions, this, that, and the other, whole load of fucking things. But obviously, like, you're there, like, and a lot of those dudes are just like, whatever, just go off and fucking do it if you want, I don't care. And
the monkey rips off their dick.
so like at one point, right, I have a bag of peanuts in my shorts in the pocket, and what I'm trying to do is, as other people are like, I put it around to the front. I'm like, here, suck this. As other people are like feeding these monkeys and whatever, I think I'm being clever, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just put my hand in my pocket and I'll open the bag of peanuts in my pocket, and like they won't figure it out, and then I'll take them out of my pocket and it'll be fine. But obviously one of these monkeys was like, dumb motherfucker, I can hear that. So he starts walking towards me on two legs. I'm like, weird. And I'm like, it's fine. He's not like doing anything crazy. He's just coming towards me. So I'm like, I have enough time to open this. It'll be fine. And then he gets like really close to me, and he jumps up on me. Right, he grabs into my chest with his fucking, I don't know, his fucking things, and then his fucking feet are like grabbing like my hip bones kind of at the front.
Weird.
And this motherfucker's screaming in my face, like he's like here.
Wow.
Screaming. And I end up like, I take the bag of peanuts out, they're like not even open properly or anything, and I just in panic, like I kind of throw it, and it hits him in the head and bounces off. And then like the guide has to, it's just like he's probably dealing with all the time. This dude just comes over with a fucking, it looks like an umbrella, but with no umbrella. It has like, it's like a stick with like this hook thing at the top. The dude just comes up and just like grabs it around his neck and just goes, yoink. And like he was like, oh, it's all casual and cool. But dude, I remember like I was only like 13 maybe at the time, 14. I shit my pants. Crazy. And I had like these fucking marks from his fucking claws hands. Or fucking nails, whatever the fuck it was. But that, and like these were like small enough monkeys, and like from that day I was like, I don't believe when people say, I beat the shit out of a monkey. It's like, okay, maybe if the monkey was like this fucking size or something, but like if it's anyway like big at all, he's just gonna like this. Like that chick who had did she have her fucking face and her hands eaten or some shit?
Yeah, I was telling Billy, eventually I want to do an episode about like 911 calls, and I want to bring that one into the episode just because like it is such a crazy case of this monkey's attacking my friend. It's like tearing her fucking face off and stuff, and like, and you think they're your pets until they like we said on the ghostly animal episode, is they molest your daughter, because like even scary. Like or they kidnap kids and they either eat them or they think that they're a baby also. Like I know that there's stories of monkeys that have kidnapped babies and then think that they're like a monkey baby and trying to raise it. And then you have Mowgli coming out of the woodwork just in the forest. Freaky. Crazy. Or they'd probably most likely tear him to shreds and then eat the baby. So crazy. So back to Freddy Krueger.
How do we get
the molester? No, monkeys.
Spending fucking 5 minutes talking about monkeys. Did you know actually in this first movie that the words Elm Street aren't said at all?
Really?
Yeah.
Weird.
We see the Elm Street sign and stuff, but nobody actually specifically says Elm Street.
I do like the intro scene of him like making the glove. Rewatching, I was like, that's like, I've always liked that part of it where it's kind of creepy, and that was a good element that they added of him creating the razor glove, because I feel like every serial killer has their like weapon, or not serial killer, but every slasher killer always has their weapons. Jason has a bunch of different ones, but his main thing is the machete. Everyone's always had one, but like for creativity, I'm gonna say that Freddy Krueger probably has the best weapon when it comes to creativity.
100%, yeah.
Because everyone like these, Michael Myers has a fucking kitchen knife, cool. Like, I could pick up a kitchen knife and put it in someone else's hand and it's like the same, it's just the same thing. But like you only know the razor fingers, the razor claws from our friend Freddy.
Come to Freddy.
Like where else? Like it's like you said, like even a machete, like anybody could go to a store and buy a machete or buy a kitchen knife
Yeah.
or whatever. Like,
Go across
whereas,
the border to Mexico, and then everyone's got a machete down there.
so it's like something like that was just way more unique and creative, I think.
Yeah, yeah. When you go to the jungle to defend yourself against monkeys, you probably want to have a machete.
Do you know
Cut through that tall ass grass.
what's kind of crazy as well is the fact that he had written this movie in like 1980 or 1981, I think it was, and he shopped it to like all the major studios, and every single one of them were like, "Nah, I'll pass. This seems like it's trash. I don't really think it's gonna work." And even obviously, Ian Craven had worked on, I think it was Last House on the Left with him. Sean Cunningham, who everybody knows is responsible for Friday the 13th. He even, I think, sat down with Wes at one point and he was like, "Look, this isn't going to work as a movie. No studio's going to want this. Like, you need to just drop it. Just forget about it."
Thanks, Sean Cunningham. How about you stop with this lawsuit so we can get some Friday 13th shit? But I think it's Frank Miller, the guy that wrote it, that's really the issue. As far as I heard. I can't remember because it's been a while since I looked into that. But like all this fighting over like, nah, it's like, don't you want to make money? Do you not want to make more money?
Do
It's
not
so
like
strange.
money.
Yeah. Everybody else seems to. They'll sell their soul for it. So
Do you remember actually we were doing a commentary? I can't remember which one of these it was, but we were laughing at the start about that company that came up called Smart Egg Productions.
yeah.
So I done a bit of digging into that company. So apparently the original didn't, it nearly didn't even get made at one point. They had put $1 million into the budget, or sorry, they had given their word basically that they would invest $1 million into the budget of this film.
Yeah.
And right before they were set to begin shooting, the company pulled and said, "Look, we're not going to go.
We don't want to
ahead,"
do
or
a movie about a child molester.
yeah, we're not going to go ahead, or something like that.
It's
And then there was like there was stories, I've seen interviews like of people working without being paid. There was a line producer who apparently was using his own credit card to pay anyone who offered to keep working. Craven's agent and some of his like I don't know, financial advisors or something told him to not show up to the first table read because the whole project was so financially like unstable that they were like, "Yeah, don't even waste your time going to the first table read because this thing's probably not even going to go to shoot." So
crazy. And then I don't know who I'd be without this movie. I don't know who I'd be. Man.
I know, it's like when you think about it, like, but it is one of those things where it's like, imagine like another few bad decisions or another few bad turns there, and this never would have been.
This is one of my favorite slasher films of all time. Probably one of my favorite horror movies. Probably one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, same.
I will say that with a bold face because
Same as me.
I love this movie, man.
In 2021, actually, I just wanted to say this, and I thought this was kind of cool. In 2021, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress for being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Like I feel like it deserves it. He's a pop culture icon. I feel like even kids today that are growing up will know about Freddy Krueger.
Freddy Krueger, yeah, 100%.
I've been definitely when I've been to fan expos and I've seen people dress up and stuff like that. I should bring up the picture for the next one if I can find it of me like staying next to someone that has a pretty good Freddy Krueger costume, and you hear kids they're like, "Oh, that's Freddy Krueger," or I've wore my Friday 13th. I have a Friday 13th shirt I love. It's like tie dye. It's fun, and I've heard kids be like, "Ooh, is that Freddy Krueger?" Like, or is that Jason or whatever, right? So I've heard like even when I was getting my hair cut. And my buddy cuts my hair, and he has a shop called Scumbags and Cavaliers. It's fun name. And so there was a kid, and he's like, the dad was like, "Who's that on his shirt?" And he's like, "Jason," like kind of scared, like nervous, right? Like I'm a stranger, and it's kind of cool.
There
like
with your dick out, going, yes,
yeah. I'm Freddy Krueger. So, but everyone seems to like know who he is, even in It's just, I don't know, it's imprinted in time now. The sweater, the glove, even the kind of the hat and everything. And it's, I wish Robert Englund would. He's still young.
Just. I was gonna say just one more movie, just one more trilogy,
Yeah, 3 more movies, man. It's
and
3
that's
more.
it. That's it.
Yeah,
That's all we
and
want.
then you can die.
Because that's like it, and this sounds awful, but that's something I often think about. The fact that he said he's never going to play Freddy again, and I think
sad.
about the fact that he's like, in his mid to late 70s, and I'm like, oh motherfucker, you're gonna fucking die soon.
I know, and
We
you're
need
not
to
gonna play
play
Freddy
Freddy
Krueger
again.
for me, please. We need you. I want, like, I have notes written down just about like when I was watching the movie, the opening credits. That's what I was saying about his name being Fred. It is like the music is really good. Like the soundtrack is great on the first film. Like the like you can hear it in the background all the time, and this musical score is great. I find like the whole this is a great movie either way. Like the whole essence of the film is amazing, and like even the makeup, I put down the makeup looks fairly good. The first one, it actually looks like wet and like kind of gruesome and more bloody and visceral, if that's the word I want to use. Wes Craven looks so young, it's crazy.
I know,
Without his
yeah.
goatee beard and
It's
stuff.
kind
Like,
of weird to see him like that.
I don't know. He looks like everybody's dad. And that's what I've heard, right? That he was very, we'll eventually do a Famous Dead series on Strange Move for both shows about Wes Craven, because I love Wes Craven. But I feel like we need to get a lot of some of his movies out of the way. Like, I really want to talk about People Under the Stairs. I love that movie. And he influenced me when.
For me, yeah, I think he's probably, in my opinion, probably the greatest and most influential horror director of all time.
I wanted to, when I was 10 years old, I wanted to be a director and create horror movies. That's how long I've been influenced by horror movies, and how much I've told this on the show before. Is like I was writing out like little scripts. I had this book of just like, I would just write out names. Like, I had one that was like, I don't know. It was like it was like I was like, did I write down From Dusk Till Dawn and then fucking they used that? I'm kidding, because I was way before that, so I was a kid. But it was like something like The Dusk or something weird like that, and I took pictures. Had this stupid mask that I got from like the Shoppers Drug Mart, which is a place in Canada that like people get pharmaceutical drugs, and it's kind of like a little grocery store kind of. Women get a lot of makeup from there. It's fun. But so I found this mask. This mask was there. I bought it. And then so I remember taking pictures. In the movie, I wanted the weapon to be like grass shears, like the shears. Yeah. And then I put like the shears next to the mask and like would take pictures out in my backyard and stuff like that. And Wes Craven was my inspiration. If my life went a little different and, I had the finances to actually go to college and stuff like that, or university, I was looking at even going to Toronto Film School at one time when I got older, but my life went down a very different, very more traumatic road. But I would have been a director, and Wes Craven is the result of that, of me loving his movies and his attitude and watching docs about him and the movies that inspired me to want to create horror movies when I was so young, and I would draw little images. I've always been massively influenced by Wes Craven more than any other director or person, really, and very interesting.
It's interesting as well that there's very few. I don't think I've heard or seen of any people having negative experiences on set or working with him, and the amount
I've heard
of
that he's
people,
like a father figure.
Yeah, and the amount of people that I've seen that said even though he was so chill and laid back, he was also very like
stern at some points and when he had to be.
Yeah, like, but not necessarily with, actors or people on the set or anything, but more with like the studios and Robert Shea and people like that. He was well able to kind of go, nah, fuck that. I'm not listening to your bullshit. So either do it the way I want it done or I'm going to walk.
And a lot of directors would fold like paper mache,
Yeah, and a lot of them
fold
did.
It's like, I'll do it, I guess.
A lot of them.
And then you have like movies, look at like Nightmare on Elm Street 2, 3. Like I still enjoy them when we start discussing them, but even 2, like some of the outlandish ideas that for a second movie, it almost like they took it too far. I don't know if we want to break down the first film. a little bit for everybody listening. All you, we gotta think of a name for anyone that listens to this podcast. Send us some messages. Send Aaron some messages at First Class Horror and uh, bring up some ideas of what you want to be called as fans. Yeah, on Strange Brew we have the hose heads. But I want to figure out something we can call you guys. The
Texan
horror
Mickeys.
yeah, we're the horror boys, so the horror brigade or some shit like that. That sounds weird though.
Horror Mickeys.
So weird. And so I wrote some stuff down like I was like, what's with the sheep in the first dream? And how like you don't really see him in that the first sequence of her in the dream is great because you hear like the of like the claws and stuff like that of his gloves, and you don't really see him yet. And it's just kind of, and she's like, it just I think it's very well done. Her like she's kind of sweaty and during nightmares most times people if you're in a hot environment or you're maybe you don't have air conditioning in the summer, a lot of times if your body is hot and your nervous system is hot and it produces nightmares. You ever heard that?
No, but I could see that.
Really? Yeah, supposedly, yeah. If you are, yeah. So if you're sleeping in a hot environment, it actually can produce nightmares more often.
Huh. I'm gonna try that now because remember I said there a while ago that I don't really dream as often as I used to.
I dream every night.
I'm gonna board up my room now and put like fucking 10 fucking heaters in there.
It's like that the weighted blanket and stuff. We used to have one of those. And it helps you sleep, but man, some of them are so heavy. It's weird. It's like you feel like your chest is being collapsed in on.
I don't know. I felt like I was gonna die when I used one of those.
When we get into stuff on Stranger Podcast, when we do talk about dreams eventually, which I think me and you should cover, if we can get Anton or Billy on or whoever, right, it would be kind of fun to do a little more extensive episode about dreams. And I can tell everyone out there, I dream almost every night. I can't even when I'm kind of drunk, I dream. But I don't sleep well when I drink. But I've dreamed my entire life. Always had dreams. Sounds weird to say that, but Billy's like never used to dream. He's starting to now, he says, but he would never dream because he would drink beer and then he would just drink till the point of him like passing out, or he would sleep with his TV on. So it's like probably influencing your brain waves in some way. And I've always had very vivid dreams, even when I'm not taking like valerian root, which I take it to help sleep, or like my CBD oil and stuff like that. But like I have very vivid, crazy dreams, sexual dreams, UFO dreams, like weird fucking shit going on in my head. And eventually we talk about the dream episode. I will probably discuss some of the dreams I've had, but I've had some I feel like reptilians are consistently R-word me in my sleep. They're like taking my juices because I always have some scary, weird sexual dreams, man. That's
what I was just going to say.
Strange.
The question is, do you have any sexy UFO dreams?
Not yet. I feel like that's coming though. I feel like the more I'm aware of what's going on.
Like CUM.
Yeah. I had a wet dream when I was younger. If anyone is interested in hearing about this, where I had a dream that I was having sex with Shania Twain of all people. Don't even like Shania Twain. Don't really like her music, and I to this day believe that some sort of entity was, because I've heard before, right? Take about dreams and the scary aspects of what goes on in dreams is more into the UFO folklore kind of thing, is that these creatures, entities, dark entities, shadow people, reptilians, whatever you want to call them, supposedly use people during their dream. They consume energy, and they actually have taken sperm of men and eggs of women during while they're sleeping in their sleep cycle and their deep sleep, and project images in their mind. Supposedly when women if women have dreams about having sex with celebrities, sometimes these entities are casting images into their mind while they're actually taking eggs from them or raping them and stuff like that. That is just a theory, but I've heard like Coast to Coasties talk about it, Project Camelot, all these kind of like older ufology radio paranormal stations or whatever you want to call them. And that was and I've had some weird dreams. I remember waking up and being like, And it was when I was like, I don't know, 14 or 15, where I'm like, I should be kind of over this shit. And I've only had him twice in my life. And the one time Chelsea was sleeping beside me, I think because I was rubbing my ding dong on her butt. So like it probably helped produce that while I was sleeping. But like the one time I remember getting, I'm like, did I piss myself? Did I pee my bed? And I literally had to smell like this sounds gross, but I was like, what the fuck? And I just kind of smelled it to see if it smelled like pee pee. And it smelled like jism. And I was like, oh fuck, I like literally came myself in my bed. Sorry if anyone is like, what the fuck am I listening to? But we're talking about dreams.
In fairness, you know, you did click on a Nightmare on Elm Street episode, so technically you could say
It works.
that yeah, this listening to Tom talk about that will probably induce lots of nightmares.
Yeah, there you go. But even like the sheep in the first dream, it was well done in just kind of introducing the glove and that whole idea of like that was the first time in my opinion that was kind of done this way, of your dreams being something that is frightening and using your dreams to scare you or kill you within a dream. Without Freddy Krueger, we wouldn't have that idea of stuff like that happening, and it did happen in the real world, so it is influenced by some real stuff, you know. Or if you got Shania Twain taking your cum.
Ooh, yikes. Yeah, and I feel like maybe I didn't realize it. I don't even want to say at the time, but like, you know, I've watched this movie a lot and I don't know if I paid enough attention to like properly analyze it, because I just enjoy watching the movie. So I just kind of,
Yeah.
it's something like you said, you know, you could have a few drinks, you could be whatever, you just stick it on. And I never really sat there and I guess tried to appreciate a lot of the undertones and what they were actually going for. But I definitely feel like that it does capture like that madness of nightmares or dreams at points. There's a couple
Yeah.
of different things I think in it.
Even you talk about undertones, right? How there is many undertones because we know who Freddy Krueger is, what he's based on, and then they don't really they don't mention it too much. They just kind of like they hint at it, and then the mom says something about it. But like, there's definitely some very sexual undertones of him being like a creep, a molester. Obviously, the part where she's talking on the phone and he like sticks his tongue out and like tries like making out with her, and you know, and even while she's sleeping, I put that down, that scene of him coming through the wall is fairly scary and a kind of a cool scene. And it's cool how they did it, because I think they show in the doc of how they kind of were able to put that effect together, and you know, of him preying on them when they sleep and in very vulnerable state of like, what is the most vulnerable state you can be in is sleeping, and a lot of people sleep naked and stuff like that too. Chelsea was like, what if a fire happens? I was like, I'm guessing I'm running out of the house with my ding dong out.
Piss all over the fire.
Yeah, like fucking Bob McKenzie in Strange Brewery, like drinks too much beer and they like use him to pee on the fire.
But yeah, like I feel like that there's multiple things there that really capture like how wild nightmares or dreams can be. Like, you know, you said about that scene of him coming through the wall there, like that seems like, you know, when I look at that, I've never had that dream per se, but I could see that being like, oh yeah, that seems like a pretty, like, I guess common thing that people may dream about. Or, you know, even when he's chasing is it Tina in that scene there in the bottom right hand where he's chasing her down. Yeah.
Tina. And he's
like,
going like making all these weird sounds and shit. Like
I don't know. It's just like when you look at it, it is kind of like random and wild, like nightmares can be, where you're like, none of this makes sense. Like I remember being a kid and I used to have this dream that there's like a town over from me, and they have this big. It's called JFK, John F. Kennedy, like Memorial Park or whatever. And he visited that town, whatever year it was, and he put funding into this big like park where, you know.
I'm a big fan of JFK. I was thinking about doing the Kennedy curse very soon, just because Robert F. Kennedy his junior is influential in a very positive way.
And there was like I guess one of the centerpieces for this giant park that they made was fucking, what do you call them? Those like hedge mazes.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I remember as a kid, like being kind of terrified of getting lost alone in that
Like The
because it's
Shining.
yeah, because it seemed like all the hedges seemed so much bigger than I was. I was like, I could never get out of this if like somehow I got lost in here.
It's like a cornfield maze. It's kind of same thing. I like
Yeah,
it where you're like, man, you could be lost there forever.
and but for years I used to have this nightmare about being in that exact maze, and there was all this like low lying fog, and every night I would have this dream, it would be exactly the same.
Yeah,
I would just randomly be in there,
that is
trapped,
strange.
and I would have this like this low lying fog and this weird Dracula looking character in this like cape with the big fucking shit sticking out and this weird white face. But he was like Dracula, but not
Weird.
Dracula. He looked really bloated and fucking freaky looking, and he would just be floating like behind me, and no matter which way I ran or
That's
turned,
weird, dude.
he would constantly be like there.
What
But
if you're
yeah,
like? That's why I'm always like, what if we are tapping into something in an outside reality, right? And like, one movie that always gave me nightmares. Not gonna lie, is which eventually we'll cover and stuff like that. Will be like, Sleepy Hollow gave me
yeah,
fucking
yeah, yeah.
nightmares. When I was like 10, this came out or whatever, and I watched it and it freaked me out. And dreams are a crazy thing. So I want to mention this, which is interesting how dreams tell you things and play with your subconscious. When I was in my early 20s, I was, in between like two relationships and stuff like that. I've said on the show before where it's just bad. I was trying to play two girls off of each other kind of thing. Was not a good, it didn't turn out well. They ended up fighting each other. It was
Really?
not great. Yeah, I chose who I was choosing currently, right? And like how I didn't know, I was in my early 20s, didn't know who I wanted and stuff like that, and confused and was like, do I really want to dive into like a committed relationship? Because it was always hard for me when I was younger because I was addicted to everything from alcohol to weed, not really hard drugs till a little later on where I got into coke a bit, but like, and that's not healthy for anyone that's sniffing coke right now off of the DVD cover of Nightmare on Elm Street. Don't stop doing that. But like, and I was definitely addicted to like sex and women in general, right? And so, and I know you were kind of the same. And I remember this chick was telling me about her dream, and this is that time where I was like, kind of gonna like not I was fucking her over to some extent where I didn't know who I wanted and I was talking to both girls or whatever, and she said she had a dream. She was on this dark alleyway, and then somebody in a hood came up and then like kind of like creepily walked up and then stabbed her in the stomach, and then the guy put his hood up and it was me staring at her as I was stabbing her, and I was
Oh,
like,
that's
whoa.
freaky. That's
And the
freaky.
fact that
And then you went, that's because I'm gonna stab you in the back, though.
yes, exactly, right? So something like that, or maybe it was the person in the dream did stab her in the back, and then the hood lifted, and I was like staring at her, and it shows how people subconscious and the people that can dream, and then the things come true, like premonitions and stuff like that. So it's dreams are a very weird thing, and that's why when we eventually talk about the like actual folklore and maybe some of the truth behind what dreams really are and what it actually is. Because I always had the theory where your soul could be leaving your body and then your mind just replays images throughout like the day or month in your head. And I don't know, it's a very freaky thing. There's like I've had weird nightmares many times throughout my life that are just like seem so real. Like and you and a lot of times how influential dreams are. I'm sure other people will also have the same experience is I've many times, I can thousands of times woken up from dreams and then had the same feeling, the same anxiety or fear or immense feeling of doom from the dream carry on into the real world. And I'll go to like work in the morning when I was younger, go to school, and I would feel this immense doom leering over me from the feeling of that dream.
Which is fucking wild when you think about it.
All the time. I've had so many dreams where I wake up and I'm like, go take a poop in the morning or whatever. And I'm sitting there like, whoa. And the images are still in my head and I feel like low and down. And I do feel like it would be a chance for some sort of entities to take control of that. But dreams are just a wild, wild thing. And I always like, I was thinking about when we were showing those images What do you think of like when his big long arms come
So,
out?
right,
It's
I
like,
always used to think that that was like super like goofy and kind of shit. But
yeah,
then just from telling you just about that one specific dream that I used to have like on an ongoing basis about the Dracula character or vampire
floating
character.
Dracula man.
Yeah, but then now when I look at it, like when I watched the movie twice in the last week, and
Yeah,
when I was watching it, I could kind of appreciate it a little bit more in the sense of like, you know what, in a nightmare, that image kind of makes sense where it's like this thing looks kind of shit and weird, but it's also I can't explain it. It's kind of freaky and scary, and I'm like, I don't really know what's going
yeah.
on. Why does it look like that? It like kind of doesn't look scary. It looks like a bit of a joke, but then at the same time, I'm also in an alleyway with this fucking big long-armed freaky motherfucker.
I know, and like I wrote down that like some of the darker scenes do look fairly good because you don't see much of his makeup, but it looks kind of wet and grotesque. But I do think it was smart to take advantage of these dark scenes, and a lot of people that I've heard in stories and people can probably vouch for this in their own dreams is that it is like a darker. It feels like almost some dreams feel like real life, but it's
Yeah.
just darker. There's like this dark looming darkness and people and you think about like Insidious and the astral world and stuff like that is kind of how supposedly people claim that the astral world looks. It's just like our world but very much darker and has this weird elements to it. But I remember when I was a kid and they come for the sleepover and there's like this all these nostalgic scenes of Johnny Depp calling his mom and then like just playing like the recording of like, oh yeah, I missed out. My friend says, oh, noisy as always, and there's like a car crash and he's like, yeah, somebody's got in an accident. It's like very fun scenes, even on the kind of sleepover. And then you have Rod, but like that scene where Tina is dreaming after Johnny Depp is like hates his life because he doesn't get to have sex, and he hears Rod and Tina just Rod's giving her the rod.
That he is. That he is.
And then that the whole thing of Tina scared the shit out of me when I was a kid.
Um, what would you say your? I don't know if you even have one that comes to mind, but do you have a favorite line from the movie? Not just from Freddy.
Um,
Now it can be from anybody. Like it doesn't have to be specific to Freddy, but I would assume it probably will be.
I wrote one down that Rod says,
Yeah.
"Up yours with a twirling lawnmower." He says that shit
I know.
as
I
like
know.
when they're walking and they're going like, "Did you also have a scary dream?" And then he kind of does like the shove it, like lifting up his arm and like when he said like shove it, and he's like up yours with a twirling lawnmower. And I had to write that down because I was like, that's a fucking weird one. Who wrote that in the
Yeah,
script?
it's like what is that even? That isn't even like anything.
The twirling lawnmower. There's some good like iconic scenes in this stuff, but yeah, I wrote that down because I remember being scared as a kid of like his voice changes throughout like the movies. You can definitely and he becomes more of this iconic character, but especially in this first one of like this like creepy like Tina, like it's freaky. So
Yeah,
I would
that
love to
that
see this in theaters at some point.
You know what? I actually forgot because I would have always said that probably "I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy" was like my favorite
Yeah.
line just because it's kind of iconic and funny and weird and quirky. But I actually think my
Yeah.
favorite line in the movie is I think it's from that scene where Tina is dreaming and she I don't know whether she gets blocked in or something like that. She turns around, she's like, "Oh my God." And then he puts the glove up and he's like, "This is God."
Oh yeah.
And
Where she's like, oh my God. Yeah.
he looks all wet
This
and shit.
is God. Yeah. That's a great scene.
I really like that because I think if you look at it and really think about the character of Freddy Krueger, um,
Mhm.
on top of it just being like a cool kind of badass line, I
Yeah.
think it kind of maybe there's an underlying idea there that he's kind of saying like in this world that I'm in,
Oh yeah.
this is God, I'm God, and he's like the opposite of God in a way. You know what I mean? He's essentially the devil. Like he's the opposite of everything that's good.
But in the view of a Satanist, God is the bad guy because God kept Adam and Eve trapped in the garden. And then Satan gave them the tree of knowledge. And they realized that they were naked and they clothed themselves. And there's all that fucking shenanigans. Because, like, who is really the good guy? You know, the whole joke about, like, pretty weird throughout all of history, the good guys always won the war. That's a little strange.
Yeah.
Statistically, that's a little weird. And there's so many iconic scenes. Like, I wrote down, like, even Rod running in his bare feet when Tina gets murdered in that grotesque way, which we should get to that. We should talk about each kill scene and kind of go through that as we go through this. We don't necessarily need to spend too much time. I feel like, but even that first scene of her being dragged across the ceiling is something so iconic in this film. And that scene, that shot of her getting her chest like ripped apart while she's wearing a little nightie, and you just that. Pretty freaky, pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That one of the most prominent kills throughout all the entire series, and to me, one of the best kills I feel like is Tina. It's the first one, and so grotesque, and like having her being dragged onto the ceiling, and then if you're witnessing that, like I couldn't imagine what that would be like, and Rod screaming too. That's why when they're like they charge him, wouldn't like Johnny Depp and Nancy be like, no, Rod was screaming his head off. Like, but then again, you'd be like, well, he's just crazy, right?
Yeah, yeah. There is a couple of things like that. I think when you look at some of the kills and whatever, and how they're trying to like push it as
Yeah.
well, these are obviously crazy. Like that's not what happened. There is some like glaring. You're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense.
When she like hits the bed too and just like soaked in blood and it splashes on Rod and he's like just screaming like a little girl. It's crazy because like it's such a, to me, that's like an iconic scene when you first get to, and she's like kind of like in that, when she's kind of like holding herself, like almost like her arms are tucked in like she's in a roller coaster ride or something like that, right? And she's like being dragged up to the ceiling. I've like, that's always stuck in my head too, of like a pretty, I would say scary scene for like this movie.
Yeah, yeah. Another one I like is the bathtub scene where his glove.
Oh, I wrote that down.
Yeah, comes up between her legs, and I think again it ties into something
Iconic.
you said earlier. Not necessarily scary, but like it's so iconic. And then I guess if you look at it at a deeper level, like it's that same thing. You know, we were talking about you're most vulnerable when you're asleep, and a lot of people
Oh
sleep
yeah, or
naked
naked
or
in a
in very
bathtub.
little. It's the same kind of thing. Like it's like the idea of this teenage girl naked, asleep as well in a bathtub,
Yeah.
and then I think that
The undertone of him being a predator.
yeah,
To
and
be
the
honest.
and the fact that they specifically made sure to let you know that his hand was coming up between her legs,
Yeah.
which is
And
like
then
an
the
added
scene where he
layer.
drags her into like drowning her in the tub.
That's freaky.
It's freaky, and I can say as a young preteen,
Horny.
yeah, I was like, oh, can I kind of see tit? Like you can just kind of see it. And that's like all these because I will be honest about some of this stuff when I was younger. And you're watching these movies when you're going through puberty. A lot of times, a lot of kids they're watching horror movies when they're younger and it's kind of taboo. You shouldn't be watching this, especially in the early 2000s, late 90s kind of thing when these movies were part of the pop culture. And it's just like you're like, ooh, could I catch even a glimpse of it? Even like if you listen to most of them are on Patreon, but the older Lost Tapes episodes of Strange Brew Podcast, where we used to stupidly watch movies because even people would comment and be like, you guys are paying more attention to the movie than the story. And it was just where the show started. We're drinking, having fun. And every time there was boobs on the scene, we would watch like Friday the 13th or something. Billy would constantly point it out. But give me a second. I need to look at the screen.
Like I remember that though being one of those things, but like even that scene is another. I could see that being a nightmare. I like again. I can't say I've ever had that
Yeah.
specific nightmare, but when I look at it, I go, yeah, I could see that being a lot of people's nightmare. Actually, the idea of being like pulled
Oh, yeah.
into that like weird black abyss and like you can't get out. Kind
Dude,
of
I've
thing.
had dreams about losing my teeth, which I can't remember what that means. We'll talk about that. We definitely do a dreams episode, but like that shit was. I remember like dreaming about losing all my teeth, and that scared the shit out of me. There's so many little things where everyone has had nightmares, and no one's not had a nightmare unless you're like Billy and he sleeps with his eyes open, which is true.
the
Freaky
the
as hell.
image of his face sleeping with his eyes
Yeah,
open. The
it's
fuck?
scary. He like his eyes like flutter and they're kind of open. And even like his ex girlfriend, he said like the first time she noticed, she was like, I started talking to him like he was awake and he was dead asleep. Fucking freaky. And
Scary.
another iconic scene is like the screw your pass when she's like starting to dream in the classroom and she's starting to figure out that maybe there is some sort of predator in their dreams that maybe has killed Tina. And, and then you see like, the chick turn kind of into Freddy. That's a big iconic scene. And the actress that played that chubby hall pass chick, said that she still gets like people saying the line to her and stuff like that. And
Yeah, that whole that's I'm trying to think now because I'm getting mixed up of what scene we're at or where. I had written
yeah,
down a school nightmare scene with the body bag being
yeah,
dragged
that's
around.
freaky. Yeah,
That
that's an
again,
iconic scene.
yeah, like and I don't know. It's just is that where that chick pops up with
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, because she follows Tina, like
yeah.
Tina's body being dragged in the body bag, which is also very. I think that's another. The first one was scary. There was a lot of scary, creepy scenes, and that it left it up to the imagination a lot of times. Where I feel like exposing too much, as much as I love Freddy and want him always on screen as the films progressed through the series, I don't know. There's something about like just not really knowing who this guy is in the first one, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I had written down as well actually the staircase goo scene or whatever you want to call it.
Oh yeah, when she's like at the final battle at the end, after
Like
Rod's been sucked into the bed.
like that one that really has a dream or a nightmare kind of
Yeah.
vibe from it in the sense of I wrote this down while I was watching it again. It reminds me, and I'm sure everyone's probably had this, but have you ever had a dream, right, where you're fighting somebody or you're punching somebody, and like no matter how many times you punch them or how hard you
Yeah,
punch them, nothing's like
nothing
working.
happens.
Yeah, like and you're just punching and
Yeah.
punching, and the idea of like her sinking down into the stairs like that and trying to like move, I can kind of get it. I'm like, yeah, that does kind of seem like a
And
I
they
don't
use
want to
like the
say
pasty, like almost like
yeah.
looks like you used to make what's that shit? That Faber Mache? Why can't I speak right now? When you make like your kid and they take the newspaper and you take the glue
Oh yeah, yeah, and you like
and
fucking
Faber Mache. So I always like when I fuck up. So I'm sure
shit.
somebody I always say
Someone
paper
screaming
mache.
at
Paper
someone
mache.
screaming at the radio. Yeah, it is. Someone screaming at the radio.
Yeah, like my God. And there's so many like, and I want to. We'll bring it to a close soon on the first film of like some of the more iconic scenes at the end and like, but like even Johnny Depp scene. Like this is the first movie Johnny Depp was in, and he, he's this handsome young guy, kind of innocent, not like kind of like in his weird cut off baseball shirt, very 80s
That
of like when men used to
freaking
expose like, their belly button for some reason. You wouldn't be called a FAG.
freaky.
Sorry.
I could
But
never
like,
picture myself wearing something like that, but
either.
that's what we should have worn for this. That's what we should do for
I know.
the part two of the deep dive. We should both wear those cut off tops.
Go true 80s. But bring it back quickly. Just the Rod scene is always funny when they find out and they're like having Johnny Depp watch over because she wants to go see Rod with inside of the dream. So she's realizing she's able to kind of lucid dream and be able to manipulate it to an extent. And then so when they go to the jail and then like and they wake up and like, we have to go save Rod. And then the weird like towel, like the blanket going around his neck, the snake thing, that was
Yeah, yeah,
always a
yeah,
weird thing. And
yeah.
not as creative, I wouldn't say, but still like because it's the illusion that he hung himself, right? Because if it was something way more obscure and he had like claw marks scratching him up and there's blood everywhere, it would be hard to explain. But the fact that Freddy was smart and was able to be like, oh, well, I'll make it look like he killed himself.
That's what I like about it, where you can kind of, I guess, use that to further the story.
It would have been scarier and they wouldn't have been able to do it, but if they actually used like teenagers, like think of It, fit like that age of kids because that's
Yeah.
what they were supposed to be. But because they were used actors that were in their 20s or early 20s or whatever, they were able to get away with, I feel like, more because, and you just tell them, oh, you kind of brush around the idea that they are like in high school and stuff, right? Um, you know what I mean? That was able for them to get a little more gruesome and graphic. If they actually used kids, this would have been not able to go to theaters, I'm sure. Like preteens kind of thing.
How do you feel about the end of this movie? Like the
Before,
very,
what do you?
like that final
Yeah.
after that final battle?
Oh, before we get into that, I want to mention one thing. When they, I wrote down they home alone Freddy.
Yeah,
At the end of the film, they did.
yeah.
She sets up like the mallet. So, and I noticed something I feel like I've noticed before is when the mallet hits his stomach and then he like falls down the stairs, you clearly see a mattress that he lands on the
Yeah,
stairs.
probably. That doesn't
I
surprise me.
noticed how. Yeah, 100% for a split second you see him hit a mattress like obviously the stunt guy or maybe Robert Englund did it, and I noticed that. I feel like I've seen it before, but was like didn't even think about it. But now watching it this time, I was like, oh, that's definitely like a mattress they use so they could have the stunt guy fall down the stairs.
Also, when she takes her second last step on the stairs scene with the gooey
Yeah.
steps, if you pause it right as she takes the very last step, you can actually see in the next step there's like a hole cut where like that oatmeal shit
really?
is like waiting. Now
Yeah,
it's
oatmeal
like
tongue.
it's not like super obvious, but like if you pause it or look closely, even you can clearly see like there's pre-cut holes
Yeah.
in the stairs.
Yeah, obviously it's an 80s film. Are you specifically talking about the mother being dragged through the window when you're saying the ending?
Yeah.
The fucking stupidest part of the entire film. It just doesn't look good. And weren't they like playing around with even doing it, and then they decided to, and they weren't going to, and then they
Yeah,
did. And it's like,
so Wes Craven's original idea was for the movie to have a happy ending. So he wanted this just to be a one-off movie. He had no intentions of it being a franchise, any sequels, anything.
oh yeah,
And
yeah. I
and
heard
he
about that.
wanted the movie to end like with them defeating Freddy, and that was it. Fuck off, Freddy. He's dead. That's gone. Finished. End of story. Move on to a completely different movie that has nothing to do with that character ever again. And it was Robert Shea, I think, who was like, no, that doesn't work for me. I want a scary ending and I want it to be left open-ended. And they went back and forth a couple of times. I was like, yes, no, I'm doing it, I'm not doing it. So apparently Craven wanted the end scene to be like a dream, but reality. So where the good guys win and everything's great and happy and they go back to suburbia and everything's brilliant. And then Robert Shea was like, nah, it's called A Nightmare on Elm Street and I want the movie to end on a nightmare.
And then the car scene, like I always take since I was a kid. The ending scene of that mannequin thing being dragged through the fucking window is ridiculously stupid. They should have filmed something else. And then the car is like Freddy Krueger's sweater, and it's like they're trapped in the car. It's like I don't think it needed that, bro. You could have left it in this way and just slightly had, or even as they're like, oh, like happy again, and like, oh, they all survive, which is also a weird thing because she's able to stop him, and then all the friends survive, and then you don't see them ever again within the series except for her, and then but like you could have just had like the claw going something like that, and then just like the glove being scratched upon a wall or anything like that, and just have it end like that, and that would have left it open ended and not look so ridiculous.
I was trying to find an image of it like going through the door. But I can't. All I can find is just like as he's grabbing her at first, but it's just so like it's so weird looking. It looks like a blow up doll.
Yeah, it's weird.
Terrible.
I will give this movie 5 Freddy I guess 4 because it's four blades. 4 Freddy fingers out of I'll say 5. 5 Freddy fingers out of 5 Freddy fingers.
Yeah, you're going with a 5 out of 5.
Oh yeah, I like. I love this movie. Without this movie, I don't know if I would be influenced as much when it comes to horror movies, and he is my favorite slasher killer, and this was the very first movie that I saw him in. So
Yeah. Look, I would probably, if I was being fair, I would probably go with the same. I would go with either a 4.5 or a 5 out of 5.
yeah,
It's yeah,
so
it's
iconic.
nearly yeah, it's nearly perfect in every way as well for what it's trying to do.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't think you can argue with that.
Come to Freddy.
Oh, actually, before we move on to the sequel, because
Yeah.
I know we've spent 2 hours talking about this one.
Yeah.
Any ideas what some of the renamed names were in different regions?
Freddy the Molester Man. I don't fucking know.
So in Japan, it was known as Evil on Elm Street.
Okay, that makes
That's
sense
not
for
bad, I guess.
Japanese people. Yeah.
And
Street.
in France, it was known as the Claws of the Night.
What? Oh, the clothes of the night. Oh.
So
Baguette.
it's fucking bit fucking random and weird.
Evil Elm Street. Sorry.
Oh God. Yeah, so I guess we're just gonna dive straight into its strange sequel, in my opinion.
Yes.
I would
Die,
say.
you little bitch.
Like-
Die, you little bitch.
Yes, we're on it's strange sequel.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know, like we'll obviously talk about it, but I don't know how I feel about the sequel. Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge released November 1st, 1985. So what's that? Like
You don't really know who he's getting revenge on.
Yeah, nearly a year to the day, I think it is. Director Jack
Unintentionally
Shoulder.
gay.
Yeah, I know. Well, apparently unintentionally gay. Distributed and produced by New Line again on a budget slightly higher than the original of $3 million, and it made a box office return of 30.1 million. I would have thought it was more than that,
Me too.
because I thought that's why it got another sequel, was because number 2 done so well.
Yeah.
So that may be
Well, because the
wrong. Let me
first, yeah.
see. No, that's right. Weird. So yeah, just to get into the plot, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 follows Jesse, a teenager who moves into the former home of Nancy Thompson, the protagonist from the first movie. Jesse begins experiencing terrifying nightmares featuring Freddy Krueger. As the nightmares become more intense, Freddy begins to possess Jesse, using his body to commit murders in the real world. With the help of his girlfriend Lisa, Jesse must find a way to stop Freddy's influence and save himself and those around him. Some of the main cast, we have Mark Patton as Jesse, Kim Myers as Lisa Weber, Robert Englund again as Freddy Krueger, Robert Russler as Ron Grady. That's probably all that's in any way notable.
You know what's crazy? Brad Pitt was almost cast as the main character.
You know what else is wild?
Imagine that.
They wanted fucking Michael J. Fox to play Jesse.
Shaking Michael J. Fox, eh?
Wow,
I actually am very sad. I'm
that's a
very
bit
sad.
rough.
Sorry. I know.
That's
I'm very sad for him. It's seeing him like that. It
You know
hurts
what?
my heart.
Like
It hurts my heart. It's just very sad.
This might sound like people will be like, "Oh, you're trying to make a joke or whatever," but like, when I look at him now, and obviously he's gotten so much worse, I'm like, it's got to be extremely fucking tiring
I know.
to have to be in that state.
Shaking all the time.
Like, it's got to be
And-
terrible.
I know, and 100%. And like, I don't know. I feel like, and I always like, it's not the be all end all, but I don't know. I feel like if he would have consumed mushrooms maybe when he was younger, because it actually goes through your nervous system and it can help with like neurogenesis in your brain. So your brain deteriorating and getting worse with old age. Like, I don't know. I feel like there is natural things out there that can actually improve people's health, and these like conditions that seem to be way more rampant since the introduction of certain medicines. I'm not going to say anymore. Maybe just maybe listen to Robert Kennedy Jr. on Joe Rogan to learn more about that. But like how certain things, right, that have influenced our health and kept us sick in perpetual sickness. And it's just seeing someone like that, like him, such an iconic figure. It's just very sad to see him.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
shit. You know what
All right,
though?
back to the gayest horror movie.
When you look at Mark Patton as Jesse, I can kind of
Yeah.
see the idea of Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, I could see that too, actually. And like they made a male the protagonist, if that's the right, because antagonist
which
is like
is
the villain,
which
which
is
is random, like a final girl, final boy.
Yeah, which is really, really fucking like unheard of and kind of weird. And it's also strange that he's straight, but
Yeah,
like
but in real life he came out gay later on.
yeah,
and
but and
the actor.
he's clearly gay throughout this whole movie, and
Yes.
even him as a person, like the actor himself is clearly gay, I think.
Yeah.
And then obviously the character of Jesse is clearly gay, and
Well, even like yeah, because
whole
he wants
movies
to
is
suck
gay.
Grady's dick. He wants Grady's gravy. Like,
So it's like, what is this shit? Like, it's
why are
just
you in
so
my room right now, bro? It's just like fucking great when he like wakes up Grady and they're like in the room together, and it's just like.
I don't know. The whole thing is fucking a bit weird. Do you know? This is something I didn't know either, but from watching the documentary and listening to the commentaries and stuff, New Line originally didn't have Robert Englund back as Freddy
Weird.
Krueger because they were refusing to give him a pay rise. So after the success of the first one,
Wow.
I don't know if it was him specifically or whoever worked for him or his agent or whatever, reckoned he played Freddy Krueger and that movie made like fucking, 100 times its budget. So I think we deserve, a little bit more money in this one. And Bob Shea and New Line were like, yeah, no, you can go fuck off with that. You're going to get the same money. So they decided to just,
Bob
like,
Shea seems like a greedy fuck in some.
yeah, they decided to just part
Yeah.
ways. They were like, they at the start of production, they actually cast a random stuntman as Freddy, and they'd done that for the first like 2 weeks, I think, of shooting. And after 2 weeks, I think Bob Shea was like, "Ooh, this is not working out. So we're gonna have to just meet his demands. We need him instantly."
Yeah, and wasn't this one like more? It was rushed fairly quickly
Yeah,
after
yeah.
the first one, like they always do. And I have complaints about that. And like I've said, we get what we get. I've said that numerous times on this show, but like it's still like, come on, like. Imagine if you took more time to figure out the
I know.
script and have a better idea. These movies could be incredible. And I wrote down too, like they made Freddy go overboard in 2 more than they could have. They could have kind of kept it at bay for a while, had a more of a scary looming figure in the darkness kind of thing, and kind of like the first one to some extent, and then expose him more at the end. But there's so many problems with this film specifically, and as much as I still enjoy it, it is probably I will rate this probably pretty low considering the other ones that I like more.
Right, and this is gonna people are gonna be like, "Oh, you're only saying that because of the, I don't know, the
gayness?
undertones or what."
No, it's
Yeah,
not
but
about
like,
the
but well, for me
I'll tell
personally,
you my issue with it. I'll
I
tell you
would
my issue with it.
like I do have some issues with it aside from that, but like
Yeah.
I'm not mad on the whole gay thing either. Be
No.
honest.
It doesn't bother me. It's just there's certain scenes where it's like it's just kind of weird. Like you have him scream like a little girl throughout the whole film.
That's just
Like-
freaky.
Like just
That's
constantly
actually
screaming.
unsettling to me. Like
Yeah.
how he
and
how he
I wrote
screams.
down when I watched this, I was like, you can clearly tell he's gay. That he just seems like
Oh,
throughout the
100%.
film, he doesn't even seem interested in his girlfriend. Even when they have sex, it's like I'm just picturing his face like just like grossed out. It's like, what is this wet thing I'm sticking my dick into? I want a poopy butthole. Sorry,
Wow,
everybody.
fuck's sake.
Sorry.
So okay, we only have how many? 1, 2, 3 taglines for this movie. So let's see
Okay.
which one's going to be your favorite. The first name in Terror Returns. The man of your
Mhm.
dreams is back.
That sounds gay.
Or
Just kidding. everybody.
or someone is coming back to Elm Street.
All fairly. I
Yeah,
like the coming. man. All fairly kind of like it's just weird, man. It's like
All pretty boring.
the man of your dreams is back, and I'm sure, you know how fucked up people are, right? The world's a very fucked up place and people have fucked up sexual preferences in some ways. But no, as Anton says, I'm not yucking your yum or whatever. I don't even like the way that sounds.
Ugh.
But yeah, that's what he was like, whatever you like, sure. As long as it's two consenting adults, I couldn't give a fuck. But like, I'm sure there's like some Freddy porn out there, like either cartoon shit
is.
or some or actual like guy dressed in a costume.
Yeah.
Like
The second
I've never
one,
seen
you're
it.
right.
I
I've
know there's
watched
the
it.
Friday the 13th one because I've seen it at the porno store once. And I was like, I just kind of wanted to have it as for a fucking, just for a joke. You know what I mean? Like, look, I got the fucking parody porn of Friday the 13th. And I've actually never seen surprisingly, you might be surprised, but I've never seen the Nightmare on Elm Street porn parody.
I just seen a clip of, I don't even know if it's like a full thing or if it was just on
Yeah.
like but it is a dude dressed up like Freddy. And I
People
don't know,
can
it was really weird. He was like
fetishize anything.
in some weird fucking dungeon, and the chick was like, she looked like a cave woman, and she was all like
Weird.
dirty and shit, and he was like
Yeah.
slapping her and stuff. I was like, this is a bit fucking weird, but okay.
Man, people can make a fetish out of anything, literally.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
there's
a
people
bit.
dressed up like dogs and cats and being like, let's go and have a convention together and whip each other. And
What did you think of Freddy's makeup in this one? So obviously, David Miller, who done the original, didn't
Yeah.
return, and they brought in Kevin Yeager, who stuck around for quite a while, and he wanted to put like his own twist on Freddy to a degree, and he made the eyes kind of sunken in and brought like the cheekbones and stuff out, and
you
then
have a
they
better
like
image? Do you have any images of the makeup?
the hook like nose, to
Yeah, I
make
noticed that,
him.
like witchy,
Yeah, to make him look like
considering he rides on the broom.
he wants to.
Better get your little dog too.
Apparently, he wanted to make him look kind of like a male witch and kind of demonic
Weird.
looking. Which I'm not necessarily against it. I don't know if I brought up
No.
any actual photos of his face. Let me have a look and see. But yeah,
The
what
makeup
did you think of his
isn't
makeup?
bad, considering it gets worse throughout the film. I always love the wet, grotesque looking makeup of the first film, but I do think his makeup is pretty good in this one, considering, right, like I was going to mention on the first film that Robert Englund hated being in the makeup and would, like, as soon as they were done filming, he would tear off the prosthetic on his face, and people said they would see like a trail of like the prosthetic, like all the makeup, like to his trailer or whatever, which I think is kind of funny. And he was like, "Get me the fuck out of this," because it feel like suffocating on your skin and stuff. And like that's why eventually they made it worse and worse because Robert didn't want to do it anymore, which is kind of sad that he could have just like stick it out, man. It's for like a couple months. Sorry, I love you, Robert Englund, but like stick it out for a couple months, and the worse that the makeup gets, and when it gets to like the sixth movie where it's like a mask, it's just like it's not as good. Because even this one, the makeup is pretty creepy looking.
I
You know
don't
what
know
I mean?
how true it is, but like apparently he had some I don't know because I never seen anything from him specifically, but other people have said he had a lot to do with it as well when the makeup started to get changed more and more because his skin and his face was getting so like sore and raw. He was like,
I could
I
see
can't do this like 5-6 hour application every day, so you're gonna have to figure out some sort of a different makeup. And then that had to do with
Yeah.
obviously then certain things they couldn't do with the time frame he wanted to do it in. So it was like,
Yeah.
okay, we've got to just like change.
I'm reading some of my notes. There's some kind of funny coming up. I put that the melting scene. Oh, that's pretty. It's the eyes I do like in this film. But at the same time, it needs to be. I don't know. It needs to be like more grotesque and like peeling red scabby sores. Like it could have been
Yeah,
better, but
yeah.
I always say it always could be better, right? And if they do anything with it now, They made the mistake, which I feel like we'll eventually talk about the remake. Like, I think it would be worth talking about, or at least maybe doing a commentary on it and bringing up fun facts and stuff like that. So it's more of a kind of review and commentary at the same time. Uh, because like they made the mistake of what's his name, Jack Healy, or whatever his name is, to do his makeup the way that they chose to. But if they do it nowadays, like you have all the opportunity in the world to make it like grotesque looking, look like real peeling off burns. And I feel like even at this time they could have done it slightly better. You know?
Yeah, like there's, and I suppose there was so much like input and different stuff.
Yeah, so many people with getting their fingers inside of this fucking film.
And then
You look at the original poster, it's like it never looks like the characters, really.
yeah, no, not really.
You know what I mean?
And then I suppose there's probably, you've probably a certain amount of the studio being like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. Then obviously Robert Englund is going, look, I can't put up with this shit, so you're going to have to do something that can be done in 2 hours. Then somebody else probably wants to do a certain thing and somebody else wants it to look a certain way. And then it just ends up kind of being maybe like a mishmash of like
Muddied.
lots of random ideas, and it doesn't really work.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like the makeup's pretty good in this one. The hook nose is kind of weird. They should have kept it consistent, in my opinion. But
I will say, one thing I will say is at least it doesn't look like this.
That's so bad, man.
At least it doesn't look like that. Like that is like the worst. Like I feel bad for Jackie Earl Haley, to be honest with you, because he's a good actor, but like
that is fucking weird.
It's just like so bad. It's actually kind of scary, to be fair. But
it
like,
is kind of scary.
Not in like a good Freddy Krueger.
They try to make him look like a real burn victim that his skin has healed, but they should have made it look like his skin has not healed yet because he's in this perpetual like hell burning alive or whatever you want to say. We definitely like we said, this is only just the surface level of what we're going to get into when it comes to this whole franchise. That's fucking weird. Is that the mask that they sold? Or
no,
that must be the mask.
I think that's just like a concept that someone put together, but like it's based off of that idea of him looking like an actual Barnes victim.
It looks like the guy from Sounds of the Lambs.
Yeah, he does. Fucking I can't think of his name, but he used to fucking scare the shit out of me.
Oh, I know. That's literally what it looks like. So strange. Especially the series Hannibal. Have you ever seen the Hannibal series?
No, actually.
If you have not, it is amazing.
Is it?
So well done. Yeah, it's so good. I really enjoyed it. I'd like to talk about it eventually because I have to rewatch it though. But me and Chelsea thoroughly enjoyed it, and I did write down the melting scene when he starts like dreaming, and there's that scene where everything's melting. I thought that was pretty cool. There is cool elements of this film. I thought that was kind of cool as being like a stoner mushroom head. I thought that was kind of cool of like everything melting and kind of being a little trippy. Know what I mean?
Yeah, there's again like there's a lot of cool, I think, scenes and different things in this movie again. I think it's another one of those you can pick out parts, but
yeah,
like overall, I'm not
You can't tell me that this is not a gay movie, bro.
Oh, it's
like how they didn't
100%.
know. He goes to a gay leather bar. And it's just like, I was like, is it a dream? Is it not a dream? Because it's kind of confusing.
I gotta bring us back up here for a second, but that fucking dance scene.
What, in the gay bar or whatever?
That scene where he's in the bedroom.
Oh, yeah, that's also
and he's like closing his drawer by like twerking on it and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like no straight man dances like that.
And like I've seen conflicting like behind the scenes reports on that. So some people, and including him at one point in time, said that when he read that part in the script, he kept purposely putting that part off because he didn't want to do it. But then in later years, he said that it was all improvised and he just went with whatever he felt at the time. And other people said that, he was all about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Like he's holding like his hairbrush like it's his dick and shit. Like it's very weird.
The whole thing is just like I literally wrote that down in my notes. I went, having a male lead for a slasher movie was especially unheard of at the time. A final guy, so to speak. In some scenes, Jesse looks incredibly afraid, and it seems really realistic. The dance scene I could really do without.
Yeah. It is very weird. And then that's what I'm saying. You can't tell me that after the fact. They're like, no, we actually like that we did it this way. It is gay and we enjoy it for what it is. And it's
I
just
don't
like,
care what anyone says. That thing, the amount of interviews and stuff I've listened to over the last week or two where they're going, yeah, you know what? Actually, now looking back on it, yeah, it is pretty gay, but we didn't really realize that at the time.
you definitely did. How could you not? You had a scene in a leather bar. In a gay leather bar where and that's all I'm like, is it a dream or is it not a dream? Because it's kind of confusing because you see the gym teacher and he's like it's leather daddy and it's just like so weird. And then they like and when
God.
he like makes him do laps in the gym. And then I wrote down Aaron loves a good bloody towel whip. That scene of like the
Oh yeah, I forgot
him,
about
like,
that.
torturing and like the bare ass. You can't tell me when you were filming that scene that you did not think it's kind of gay. You know what I mean? Like the principal's like the principal that's Scree, but like the gym teacher, the coach is like strapped up and then getting his ass whipped with the towel is like weird.
Which is just like,
That shit can hurt. I want me to tell you a real horror story.
God.
Want to hear one? So I worked in the restaurant industry, right? I was a chef for a while. We used to towel whip each other, and it can hurt a lot. My buddy told me the story about when his mom worked in a restaurant. She was like bartender or whatever, and this is like, you know, we would mess around in the restaurant. Like it's working in a restaurant, especially couple of years ago. I feel like I don't know. I feel like it's still probably the same way, but there's a lot of drugs that go on and people doing stupid stuff and messing around when it's slow and kidding with each other. And yeah, that scene is so weird. Just like that fucking bloody Manas. It was so funny. Just another stupid. I'll finish that story in a second. But like, just Manas. We on my last job, we had a forklift, and we put like a cardboard thing over the top of the forklift. So if we went outside when it was raining, you wouldn't get soaked or whatever. So people started writing stuff on the ceiling of it, and nobody really noticed for a while. But there was like someone wrote Tom loves Trudeau, and then I put Mitch loves Manass. That's what my buddy's name is, Mitch. And I was like, I put the two words together so that Mitch likes Manass, and then somebody put Mitch is gayer than AIDS. I was like, whoa. And then I was like, some of the shit, there was like dicks drawn all over it. And I'm like, man, hopefully not like, and the supervisors knew about it, but the main boss would never get on the forklift, so he would never see it. But there were so many like, just like homophobic shit.
What a way to
written on
escalate things.
Yeah, it's just like, man, hopefully we never hire a gay guy. And he looks up and he's like on the forklift, I'm like, whoa. And at the time we did. He said that he left Windsor, wherever he was. This kid like stunk. This kid was like obviously not showering and stuff. And he said he left for a girl to come to Brantford. He was from like Windsor or some other place. And then he confided for some reason in my buddy Mitch. And Mitch is like a man's man that wears like steel toe cowboy boots. And he was like saying how he left. Maybe the cowboy boots gave it away and he thought he was gay or something like that. And he said that he left to come where we lived for a guy actually and stuff like that. And Mitch was like, I don't know why he confided in me. He's like, do I have
Probably
gay
some like
radar written all over me?
Brokeback Mountain sort of shit.
So we're talking about the towel whipping, okay? In a restaurant, my buddy told me a story and says it's like completely true, is that these two dudes are fucking around whipping each other with towels, and you can crack it pretty hard. You get good at this. We used to like hit each other with spatulas. One of the dudes, if you caught leaning over in they had like the server alley, and then they had the takeout. So takeout was usually a little slower. So if you're leaning over, like talking to the girls or whatever like that, the guys would usually hit you in the ass with like a spatula. One guy got me pretty good, and then I hit him with a spatula. And he had a red mark on his ass. Like he's like, "You fucker!" He's like, "Look at this shit." So we do stuff like that all the time.
Was
and
this before or after you used to bend each other over?
Yeah, it's true. Like fucking paddle whacking, and so it says this story is true. And my buddy, when his mom was working in a restaurant, and they two dudes were fucking around, and the one guy cracked the towel really hard and split a guy's nutsack open, and he had to go to the hospital.
Jesus Christ!
It hit him in the fucking nutsack really hard, where he was able the pressure or something like that, like split his nutsack a bit. Be careful, everybody, when whipping towels at each other. Because you get it wet, you like twirl it really fast, and then you like crack, and it's not like a whip sometimes, where it literally
Dude,
like
I
you
swear to
use,
God,
like, a
the
crack.
idea of that, I actually have a pain in my left nut now.
Yeah, fuck, man. So, onto the gayest horror movie ever. Not well, may not now that Pete Davidson is some. I'm just kidding. I've never watched that Body's
Ooh.
Body movie, but I heard that was kind of gay too.
I
Or
don't
like
even. Yeah, I know what you're talking
the
about, but never seen it.
I haven't watched it. It's just so funny. Even like I put his crazy hair at the end, where his like his hair is like crazy spiked up, but he's like sweaty and going through like just scared the whole time, right? And because they have him like, and I don't know, he's a babbling, crying little girl throughout the movie, and doesn't. You think as a man, you would a straight man. I'm just
I
kidding.
guess
Not all
I
straight men are fucking
but I get what they were kind
are
of like.
fearless.
They're saying that obviously it wasn't intended. He was to come across gay or whatever like that, and feminine and stuff.
Yeah.
And if they had said like, "Oh, that was the intention," I could see why. Because you're like, "Oh, we
Yeah.
don't want to have a manly man in the lead role because we need somebody who like, who's going to be afraid of Freddy and who Freddy can kind of play with and fuck with." I get that, right? And I don't know if anybody else feels the same as me, but I fucking despise the character of Jesse.
It just could have been done better. I don't know, it just doesn't make sense, and like how he's using him to kill would have been a good idea. And if you made him Jesse become more menacing, but then you have to relate to the character in some ways, because that's how movies are like, where you have to you want to see yourself in one of the characters. That's how people relate to movies a lot of times. But you can't tell me that they didn't know what they were doing, because like, I'm scared Grady, and he wants to like sleep with Grady. He literally wants to sleep with him, and then Grady's like kind of like, and you can tell even in the film that they purposely seem to have done this, where Grady's kind of like, "What are you talking about, man? Like, get out of my room," kind of shit. Like, and they're not really friends because Grady kind of bullies him, and then but yet Jesse wants Grady, and it seems like he's more infatuated with him than he is his own girlfriend. And like even the sex scene seems uncomfortable. It's just so weird.
Yeah,
How did that happen?
Strange. I was watching the Never Sleep Again documentary, and there's like obviously segments with Mark Patton in it, and that he said that he actually said no to some of the homoerotic elements. So that scene where isn't he like pressed up against the side of the stairs or something? He's like this, and like Freddy's like saying shit to him or whatever. And like apparently they wanted Robert Englund to put like a finger or two in his mouth, like his blades, and like he's gonna kind of like, I don't know, like sucking him or something. And apparently Mark Patton was like, "Nah, I'm good."
That's so weird.
I'm not interested in that.
And even the coach balls, like, there's all the balls and stuff that, like, there's so many things, man. When like there's all these balls that are being thrown at him and stuff like that. There's some weird shit, man. And that and then they're like doubling down on it, and it is, it's, and I got no problems with it, but it just doesn't make, I don't know. And I'm sure there's people that absolutely love this film in that community. Sure, like whatever, just not my thing. But it could have been better. There's so many problems with it, where like, "Oh, we didn't mean it to be gay," and then they double down and say, "Well, actually, we did mean it to be gay," and they keep going back and forth, especially in the doc, of what they think it is and how they're claiming they didn't know, and then they said they did know, and it's just like, you're kind of contradicting yourself a bunch of times in this.
Yeah, like, and part of me, like, I had written down, I was like, the movie takes such a switch tonally, it's actually quite jarring when you think about it. Would have been completely unheard of at the time in the mid-80s. The idea of the character of Jesse being a closet homosexual, is this to push the idea that Freddy knowing all your secrets, etc., and never outright saying anything? Because there is times like where Freddy makes these little quips towards him, and like it sounds like, he's
they did this on purpose.
Yeah, like it kind of sounds like that Freddy's going like, "I know you're gay, but I'm not gonna say it. I'm just gonna say things."
Yeah. I was watching you when you had sex with what's her name? It's like, you didn't
with
like
that dude.
Yeah, with Grady. It is weird. So one issue I do have is that's fun. I really like that that meme that they use of Freddy pondering like his life. Just sitting there and he's probably smoking a cigarette, be like, fuck man, I just want to get this out. There's cool scenes of him when he does exit Jesse's body into the kind of real world or whatever. Like there were some cool elements of it. Like that scene, the effects was pretty good, but then you
Yeah.
see like his face turning into like a morphing. But
And I
like
don't like the part where there's like an eye looking out through
No.
his mouth. But when
yeah.
when he kind of gets out of his body and kind of like, I guess, shrugs his skin off as if like it's just like an old coat.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool looking the way he's just like, trash and fucking whatever.
Why do all
I
those
like
guys
that.
look the same? Look at that picture in the corner of all like the effects guys. They all look like the others of
Those
each
big
other.
fucking pedo glasses.
Dahmer fucking glasses. And I wrote, because as we bring it to the close of this, is like the ending of having him come into the real world doesn't make sense. This is why I have so much issues with the film. It's not because it's fucking gay. It's because there's certain elements of it that don't make sense, especially for a second film in a series of where the first one was actually pretty scary and freaky, and these overtones of like this predator, and they just didn't make it the same in the second movie. And then he comes there, he's like, "You are all my children now," and like how he's in the real world does not make sense. I did say the party scene is fun, but has always bothered me. The guy tells Freddy, "No one's gonna hurt you, man. Calm down. Calm down, man. Nobody's gonna hurt you." And I always thought that was kind of funny. It's like, what? Why you? This guy looks like he's a burned creature from like the depths of hell, and you're like, "No one's gonna hurt you, man. It's okay. It's okay. I know you're angry." It's just like very weird.
Yeah, like I had written down that as being one of my lines that I like when he says, "You're all my
Yeah.
children now," and like
Yeah, that's a fun
I
line.
guess I think I have an image of it there. That look there where he's like kind of glistening
It's
and
fun.
the fire
The
goes off behind
barbecue's
him.
on fire.
But like I as much as I enjoy that scene, and
Yeah.
it reminds me of in Freddy vs. Jason, we get that like cornfield scene where Jason comes back and he's just like hacking everybody up.
Yeah.
I really like that pool party scene or whatever it is. It's definitely one of like the most well-known moments in the movie. But
Yeah.
I also remember writing down, I was like, the pool party scene is one of the most memorable on this watch. But I remember up until this point, I always hated that sequence. And I think it's
He like
from
jumps out of nowhere and then he's
yeah,
like running
it's
around.
weird. He comes up out of the ground like fucking Rey Mysterio in fucking WWE.
Yeah.
And then like just like, even with the flames behind him and stuff, there's different things like that. And then I'm like, I don't know, I feel like obviously he's not Jason or Michael Myers, so he's not like 7 feet tall. He's like,
No.
fucking 5'8", 5'9" maybe. So he's just a regular sized dude, and I felt like putting him in the real world in a setting like that, it kind of like I think like discredited, because it kind of looks like a little bit of a joke, like because there's all these like kind of jock looking dudes, and you're like, everyone there is bigger than, like there's chicks
And
bigger
you
than
can't. That's what I'm saying. There's like 30 kids or whatever, and no one's beating them up. No one's like there's objects you could take and hit him with, and everyone's just running scared. But would you not have the guy? And they show kind of guys trying to take him down. And he like throws them or whatever, or cuts them up, and it's just doesn't make sense.
There's a dude, there's a kind of a chubby guy who gets stabbed in the stomach. And I think it's really underrated. Like nobody ever talks about it, but it's actually really cool because as Freddy stabs him in the guts, like the amount of blood that starts to pour out of him, and I think it's done really well. But it like you see it in like in an instant. But there's also probably for me one of the worst deaths in any movie fucking ever is in this scene when they're all trying to jump over the fence and there's a dude lying on the ground.
Yeah.
And they're like stepping on his head and stepping on his neck. And I think like the idea is
I remember that.
the idea I think is supposed to be like
Trampling.
that they have trampled him to death. And like
Yeah.
there's just one single I think line of blood coming out of his mouth. And it's just the worst looking fucking thing I've ever seen. I'm like, wow, that is absolutely terrible.
Well, and I don't know. It's just like the whole idea of him now being like, It's the second movie, and you're gonna bring him out into the real world at the end of it. Like, why? Why wouldn't you save that for a later film? Or like the whole reason why he's scary is because he exists in a place in your dreams where you're vulnerable and most times alone. But now there's 30 guys that could have beat him up, and somehow he's over to overpower them. Yes, he is a mythical type creature, dream man. It's just, I don't know. It's just like I've always had a problem with it. As much as when I was a kid, I thought it was probably fun. When I rewatched it as an adult, I'm like, man, you missed so many opportunities to make this film better, more scary. You kind of made Freddy into a joke. I'm sure that Wes Craven did not like it. I'm sure he went and saw it and was like, man, what the fuck? What? And I'm sure at the time Wes Craven's like, you made this gay, man. You made my character gay. This is
I'm not going to lie, and it's not because of like I have anything against gay people or whatever, but like I know that if it was me and I had like felt like I worked so hard to make this kind of serious character and then it turned into this in the sequel, I'd be like, what the fuck is
and it's
wrong
nothing
with
to do with fucking like I said, people can claim what they want, and if they want to call us homophobic or some bullshit, you're factually incorrect. One of my co-hosts on Strange Brew Podcast is literally gay, and I have nothing against any person that is gay. I have a problem when everyone gets together to claim one thing under one umbrella when everyone is fairly pretty different, so it's a really weird when you mash everyone together in one community. It does not make sense, and now you see the outrage of certain people, and even people within that community. They're like, enough is enough, man. Why do we have to like all be under the same umbrella? It's kind of strange.
What's your favorite poster from what's on screen there? You have to choose between those.
I would definitely say the one where it's the house and it's actually Freddy, really. Like, it's actually the makeup done of Robert Englund. Some of them are pretty fun, actually, looking. There's some fun, like, posters on the screen. The one where he's, like, cartoon and he's, like, got his hands up and it's, like, Freddy's Revenge in the bus. It just looks fucking weird.
So, you see the one on the far right?
The Japanese looking one?
No, on the right hand side.
Oh, far right. Oh, he's hugging that's the original poster.
Yeah, but again, that reminds me of the fucking that poster we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I know.
Where they kind of replicate like weird kind of claw hand thing that doesn't really look like it. Kind of looks like his hand from fucking New Nightmare, and that like weird skeleton face thing that's not him either.
It's very weird. I always remember the poster of him staying there with like the house and the blue background of the clouds and stuff like that. And like this film is fun for what it is. I don't want to alienate our audience in any way about if people are listening that are part of whatever community. I could not care less. But I'm sure this is a big staple for them in the community and stuff like that, because it was overtly gay and they claim they didn't mean to, but it seems like they definitely meant to. And like, I still enjoy it for what it is. I feel like I enjoyed it more when I was younger, but like, it's just, there's so many flaws and holes, and they had so much, you had opportunity to make it, I don't know, better than what it is. Like, I don't know. There's my main guff is having, is because he's gay. I'm just fucking kidding. That's not it. It's the end scene. I'm fucking kidding. Yeah, the end scene of him being in the real world. I was like, why are you doing this in the second movie? And having him like running around, like just sporadically running around with his claw, and like it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't fit well. He's the reason he's scary is because you're vulnerable in your dreams and you're alone.
We talked about this before. I think it was on one of the commentaries as well. But there was I found online. There's a Fangoria article from 1989, and there's a screenwriter who had written a script called Freddy's Baby, and the concept of it was a tribute to Rosemary's Baby from 1968. The story followed a new family moving into the house, a teenage boy, his pregnant mother, and a stepfather that the boy didn't get along with. It was a more physical and realistic script, with the dream stuff being less central to the story. The story was more of a possession scenario, with Freddy getting inside the mother's womb and controlling the unborn baby from birth. So it was like a kind of a possession movie. Now, not like it didn't. As from what I gather, I haven't read the script or anything, but like the child doesn't get born as like a mini Freddy or anything. It just gets born as a regular child, but he's
like Damien.
yeah, that kind of idea. But apparently, the only reason that didn't get made at the time, New Line passed on the idea because there was an executive that worked for them at the time called Sarah Reisher. And she was pregnant at the time, and she had a lot of pull in New Line, and she was like, "Nah, that upsets me. I don't like that story." So
I'm offended. It makes me angry.
yeah, and she
Like,
just
yeah,
nixed the idea, and that was it. Before we move on from
there's
this
so many
one,
better ideas that they could have done.
I know. Before we move on from this one, do you have both a favorite line and a favorite kill, or a favorite scene? For me, I'll give you a
How does
second to think.
How does Grady die? Oh, he gets trapped in the room with
Yeah, after
Jesse, right?
so I guess that kind of ties into. I'll give mine if you want to have a think about it. My favorite scene. I know it's not really a kill per se, but when Freddy comes
Is
out
the coach.
of his
Love
body,
that fucking man ass.
fuck that. When Freddy comes out of Jesse's body and just kind of flops, I wrote it down exactly like that. I was like, when he bursts through his body and he kind of shrugs off the remaining skin, like getting rid of an old coat. I love that scene. I think that's quite cool. And probably my favorite line, or my favorite like moment, other than the usual like "you're all my children" and all that shit, would be when he says, "You've got the body, I've got the brains," and then peels the skin off his head.
Yeah, actually, that's a fun one.
I kind of like that.
I do like the claws going through Grady into the door, and "you were all my children now" is like, because he's a predator and he wants to molest all of them, because that's pretty much what he would be doing. And I feel like that's part of it. And I did write. It's funny because in the documentary, they all talk shit about this movie though. All of them, and act like they didn't know what they were doing, and like, "Oh, we just threw it together, da da da." Especially like the one director, that bald guy with the little glasses, that kind of looks like, the Nazi in Indiana Jones, that like melts and shit. He kind of looks like that guy. It's like,
I just don't believe that at all. I
no,
don't believe
either.
that.
And then they all talk shit about it, and they're like, "Oh, well, yeah, it could have been better. We did this. We were like throwing ideas together." And it's just like, when you have to have a cement idea. You can't like be throwing in all this stuff, and then the producer's like, "I want to see this," and then the writer's like, "Well, I want to see this," and then the actors really don't get to say, but like, and it's just like, this is where you get these muddied movies from, and it's just kind of sad considering,
The reason as well, actually, that I think I said earlier about it like doing so well. That's why they made another sequel. When this thing released in Europe, when it came out on tape and stuff like that, it was extremely, extremely, extremely popular in Europe.
Makes sense.
Like,
They're all
really, really
just
popular
kidding. I'm
in
just
Europe.
kidding.
But
Everybody
I think maybe that might have had something to do with it.
Yeah. Europe is a little more sexually promiscuous than the States and even Canada when it comes to the idea of that a lot of Protestants, Christians, Catholics founded the United States and stuff like that. So they're a little more prudish, so, and and then you go to like Germany, and there's underground sex clubs, and, you can get your asshole fingered by a doctor for fun. And Jackass where Johnny goes to like the German place, and it's like, "We will stick our fingers in your," you know what I mean? It's just like, well, you think of a Euro trip, right? When they go around Europe, like an Euro trip, and there's all these freaky clubs and stuff like that. And it's just like, yeah, people can do what they want. Sure. It's just like, I don't give a fuck what you do. Just, I'm not going to those clubs though.
But yeah, that definitely had something to do with it. So out of 5 Freddy fingers,
I was gonna do 2 bloody towel whips.
Oh, okay.
Out of 5.
I'll do 2.5.
I'll get, honestly, yeah.
And that's
there's fun stuff about it, and that's being generous, but it just could have been better.
Don't really have much more to say about that, to be honest with you. So I guess we'll get to the final part of this
Yes.
first deep dive, which is another fan favorite. Actually, it's got a huge cult following now. Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors.
I actually do enjoy this one very much. 3 and 4 are probably next to the original some of my favorites, but I like them all pretty much, except for yeah, we'll talk about it in the next series. So many problems with some of them.
So yeah, obviously this is the third installment in the franchise.
Always like this one.
Another new director we have, Chuck Russell. This one was released February 27th, 1987. Again by New Line Cinema.
Chuck Russell sounds like a fucking wrestler.
Chuck
Russell.
It's had a little bit of a higher budget again, 4.5 million, and a box office return of just under $45 million. The plot follows a group of teenagers who are patients at a psychiatric hospital. They discover that they all share a common connection. They are the last remaining Elm Street children targeted by Freddy Krueger in their dreams. Led by Nancy Thompson, a survivor from the first film, the teenagers learn to harness their dream power and fight back against Freddy to save themselves and other potential victims. So obviously there you heard that Heather Langenkamp comes back again as Nancy Thompson. Patricia Arquette plays Kristen Parker. Larry Fishburne plays Max. Robert Englund again as Freddy Krueger. Jennifer Rubin as Taron White. Other than that, there's other characters, but I don't think anyone really gives a shit about him. Who
plays what's his name? McCain, the black dude. I actually really like him. And
I don't know.
What's his name?
Picked a handful of fucking.
He's like one of my favorite characters in this film.
Lawrence Fishburne.
No, that's Lawrence Fishburne is the psychiatric.
He plays Max.
Yeah, that's a psychiatric. But you know the chubby black kid. McCain? I can't like
Kincaid.
Kincaid. I love his character, and like it's funny because they wanted some like beefed up guy, in like they're talking about in the doc where they wanted some like more kind of strapping young man kind of thing, and they actually like in his what do we call that? His agent was like you should go audition and stuff like that, and he did, and he got the part, and I actually truly do really love his character. It's like one of my favorite characters when it comes to this film.
Yeah, he's actually, and I think a lot of people share that same idea. Pick your favorite tagline. Freddy's just around the corner.
Okay.
If you think you'll get out alive, you must be dreaming.
It's not bad.
If you think you're ready for Freddy, think again.
I think if you're ready for Freddy, think again. I like that one.
Yeah, that
you
one
ain't, you ain't ready for this jelly.
That first one.
I'm gonna stick
terrible.
my fingers in your belly. That's a music video that I something happened to me when I was a kid watching that. I don't think you're ready for this jelly. I don't think you're ready for this. I'm too bootylicious for you, babe. It's crazy because they, despite Wes Craven not wanting to return A Nightmare on Elm Street into a cheaper slasher series like Friday the 13th, New Line Cinema always asked him if he wanted to return for part 3. Craven did return. He wrote a script with Bruce Wagner, but New Line decided not to use it. And imagine if he would have been able to do it, because Craven's script had the idea of bringing Nancy back, but ultimately a lot darker and more ambitious than New Line Cinema wanted to tackle. And it's like, you know how much better this could have been if you let Wes Craven come back and have this like darker aspect to it, make it back into a scary horror movie. But I even wrote down my thing. They kept stepping away from the scary aspect. I think it would have been better if they went with Wes's darker script.
And the script that he had wrote for this eventually went on to be the script that was the basis for A New Nightmare.
Oh, that's interesting. That's going to be a thing on its own, just because I really do enjoy that movie.
Yeah, reinvented the wheel with that one.
Yeah,
But you see,
Kind of
right?
crazy.
Is
Is this the one with the nerdy kid in it? Is this the one with the kid with the cape? Is right?
Yeah. But does that not tell people or show people like how genius Wes Craven was to have, right, to create a Nightmare on Elm Street, okay, and then its subsequent sequels just like it was like gay, Dream Warrior like battle stuff, Dream Master, Dream Child, all this shit, right,
Yeah.
and it's all goofy, and then he comes back on the scene and somehow reinvents the entire thing again
Yeah, I know.
better than they've done it for like the last 5 movies. And like he's done stuff like that multiple times, like when he remade fucking The Hills Have Eyes. Very rarely would I say like I prefer the remake of The Hills Have Eyes than I do the original.
Yeah, I agree. And I was just reading something about Kincaid's character and how the actor, they kind of pushed him to go audition. He was only doing smaller roles, and his name is Ken Sagos. And I guess he was in a storm, caught in a storm, was a few hours late, and then the director kind of said, "Do what you want," and Ken said, "Fuck you" to the director. And probably while he was doing the monologue or whatever, they kind of said to whatever, do what you want with the audition. And that's what got him the role, probably.
Kind of a cool
It's
story.
like, I know, kind of a cool
fairness.
story. All the budget went to the special effects. When it came to A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Warriors New Line Cinema decided to give most of the budget to the special effects despite CGI being available at the time. Most of the effects were still achieved practically, which I like, while the giant Freddy worm and even the decomposing pig were impressive effects. The effects were almost even more horrifying, which there are some fun ones when he's like a puppet. Also, the snake Freddy looks like a penis. It does.
Yeah, I'm not crazy.
I don't like that.
on
But
that,
hey,
to be honest with you.
I'll say 100% the scene of where they're tearing out the kid's fucking veins
Oh
is
my
probably
God.
one of the best special effects kills when it comes to a Nightmare on Elm Street film. I actually do love that shit.
That used to freak me the fuck out
Yes.
for years. The idea of that used to terrify me.
Yeah. And then you have like even this TV scene, "Welcome to prime time, bitch." Like that's great. And that like chick that like
Do you know
she
that
looked like
was
she looks like a white Asian chick. I don't know what she is, but
do you know that was
she has an interesting look to her.
improvised line? So like they had shot that and that wasn't in
Really?
the script, and they had shot it a few times and then they went to do like another take, and I don't know, whoever was there said to Robert Englund, just do something different or do whatever you feel. We're just going to get a different angle. And
Yeah.
he said that, and it just became super iconic. But there was no
I
intention
love the
to ever
idea of
have
him
that in there.
puppeting that shit, man. Like puppeting the kid with the veins being pulled out of his
Yeah.
arms is
Yeah.
very freaky.
There's a lot of really cool ideas in this, I think. Speaking of, you said there about majority of the budget being used for special effects. There was a scene in the shooting script right up till the end, nearly till it was removed, but where it doesn't say which character, but one of the Dream Warriors dreamt up a giant Transformer style robot that would then go on to fight Freddy. This made it all the way through the storyboard stages, but eventually towards the end of shooting, finances made it physically impossible.
Weird. I guess that makes sense because they already had a bunch of effects. And I'll say, like, out of all the films, I can understand why this one is a fan favorite. You have Nancy coming back. A lot of the characters are good. I wrote down the weirdo that plays that kid with the nurse. I don't know why I wrote that down. Just the actor or the I think it's because if you watch the doc, the guy that plays one of like the younger looking kids, and he's kind of like he's kind of like a pussy in the film, and he's the one that gets killed by the Freddy kind of nurse thing, which that's fun. That's a fun scene. Titties, but like if you see him in the documentary, he's just a weird dude. He said he got involved with drugs and stuff like that after the film. It's just a weird character. I don't know why I wrote that down, but it's something I must have took from it. I was like, this fucking weirdo.
What do you think of the statement that a lot of people think that this movie has the perfect balance between comedy and fun, and then scares.
I could say that is like this is one of my favorites. Like, to be honest, it is really well done. As much as like I love Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 and I love Friday the 13th Part 3, they're both very well done in that way of kind of a good balance of that slasher film. And even that scene where the chick is working out and her like we have it on screen right now, and her like elbows being ripped up is like grotesque.
Disgusting. Fucking
There's so many good scenes. Like I wrote down like the track marks on the punk chick's arm, like that, like is gross, and they're like talking to her and stuff like that. And obviously, there is people that supposedly claim that it helped them get off drugs, like that scene. And like, I don't want to stick needles in my arm anymore. I shouldn't be doing it in the first place there. But people get in bad situations and turn to drugs and something that can make them feel better. The reality is harsh.
Have you ever heard of like that whole story about the glove being stolen? Like the actual prop glove?
No, what? Really?
Yeah, so the glove went missing, and I'm nearly sure it's in one of the documentaries about it. The director, Chuck Russell, he said that, like, I don't know how they figured this out, but basically it was like an investigation to find out what actually went on, because everybody was kind of looking at each other and thinking like, oh, maybe the director took it as like a memento, or maybe this person took it or that person took it. But apparently what happened was two hardcore fans snuck on set disguised as key grips, and waited till everybody like were going around like working essentially all morning, and then waited till the crew took a break, and then went and grabbed the glove and ran away with it. And that was missing. That glove was missing for years and years and years, until some big collector managed to find it somewhere. I don't know exactly how he tracked it down. Yeah, and he bought it, which is fucking.
That's kind of cool. I don't know. I'd probably fucking, if I was a stupid kid and like a big fan of this film.
Yeah, same.
If you had the opportunity, I don't know. Same. And like, there's a super iconic parts in this film, like the Freddy having the needle fingers, cool. Which definitely freaked out a lot of people. It's smart and kind of clever, and I think they did a pretty good job of this movie, especially with the kills and being more creative. The punk chick was supposedly like Tara is her name, or Taryn. Kills Taryn. Weird. I feel like that doesn't sound right. But that is she was originally gonna. Yeah, it was originally gonna have her head blown off, but they obviously, with the budget and stuff like that. But she actually stabbed Robert Englund. Another iconic death in the Dream Warriors is when Freddy kills Taryn. Taryn is recovering drug addict in the film, which Freddy uses against her. His iconic needle fingers. Taryn's power in the dream is basically for being like her power in the dream world is basically being a badass bitch. And when Freddy Krueger attacks her, she battles him with two switchblades. And when Robert Englund and the Ruben, the actor, were filming the scene, Ruben got a bit into her part and actually stabbed Robert Englund with the knife. The knife was likely a prop, but getting stabbed in the ribs still wasn't a pleasant experience for Robert Englund. Oh, it must mean ribs, but weird. In this article from Screen Rant, it says rips.
That's a bit weird.
I know. And then when Tara dies, her head was supposed to explode, as I said, but they couldn't afford the effect. Pretty interesting.
For anybody who's watching the video, obviously we have some posters from different regions in the world.
Yeah.
That
what the fuck's the one with a coat? He's never wearing a coat.
That's literally what I was going to talk about. So that was like the UK and Ireland poster. That's the one I remember seeing everywhere.
Really?
That was like the promo thing that was like everywhere and like in video stores. I think there was actually, I can't remember specifically, but I mentioned earlier about like seeing a Freddy Krueger standee in the video store, and I think that might have been. He was
wearing a coat.
Yeah, and he was wearing this weird but
they like having coats, right? Like...
it was fucking weird though, right? It doesn't really make any sense, but I remember that being everywhere. That image of him with that long coat.
I'm guessing that's a Spanish poster. Or an Italian one. Yeah, I actually kind of like that one. It reminds me of like, like 1960s posters for like some of the what's those old vampire movies that Christopher Lee was part of? Hammer films, like the
Yeah.
Hammer films. It kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of like those kind of posters. I actually kind of like that one.
Again, I think is the top right. Is that the official one?
Yes, I remember that
Uh,
one. That's definitely. It's still
again,
cool looking, but
again, like it's
again, the
cool,
weird
right?
glove.
But like weird glove and kind of looks like Freddy, but also doesn't.
I know it's a weird how they decide to go like with that, and mostly like in the American releases, probably in Canada and all stuff, is that weird kind of like '80s aesthetic, weird like cartoony comic booky
Yeah,
kind of look.
yeah.
That's what it looks like. Speaking about someone else getting hurt, the nerd character, the character Will, I think he's the one that like on the dock. He's kind of a weirdo. Is a character who is confined to a wheelchair in the dream world. However, Will he can not only walk but also is the wizard master, which is a very funny, stupid scene. But I do enjoy it. And he turns into like this weird. He has this a weird Dracula cape. Will unfortunately doesn't make it until the end of the movie and is stabbed by Freddy Krueger, and it's a fun scene. And when it came time to film the death scene, the blades on Robert Englund's gloves wouldn't retract, so they had to improvise. Instead of delaying the shot, they delaying the shoot, I guess they stuck 2x4 underneath Will's shirt, the character of Will, and hope for the best. His name is Ira Hayden. And thankfully, Robert Englund had good aim, so he wasn't seriously hurt, but he did have an injury that, like, obviously was decently bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep going. I was gonna say that the one chick, like the blonde girl that gets her head shoved through the TV. Everyone says as a kid, I was like, she just like has a weird look to her.
Yeah, she does kind of have a weird face. Her features
Yeah,
really weird.
Yeah, just I don't know if that's bad for me to say, but if it's something I've always took from the film, I was like, yeah, she has a unique look to her.
To kind of touch on as well, actually, what you had said, I put down best kill for me was Philip's death. Extremely disturbing visuals, pulling out the nerves and tendons and using him similar to a puppet. And then I had written in, not that I don't like it, but I was like, it's strange in contrast between that to Will's death, where you just see him get stabbed in the chest.
Yeah, in this dark alley.
Yeah, it's strange because like some of them get these like big elaborate kill scenes, and then some of the scenes is just like, oh, just gonna stab you a bit, done, in the story.
Like the sexy nurse.
And like if you watch actually this movie in like on the Blu-ray or in any sort of high def at all, in Will's scene you can actually see 2 wires.
2x4.
No, you can see the wires holding them up because it's backlit. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if you look at it, you can actually see. That's something I've seen a lot of people talk about, that when companies are re-releasing these older movies in 4K, they should really make the effort to remove some of that stuff. And I was like, yeah, but
Yeah, they did with Star Wars. But
I was like, they're probably already spending colossal amounts of money to even license and get these things done in 4K. So I was like, they probably don't even have the budget to get someone to come in and polish that out.
no, and even then, you have the picture of the nurse scene too. Is kind of funny because they were going to actually make like the nurse like naked and then have like Freddy's face on this woman, and you can clearly see the makeup, but they didn't use it because it looked too weird, because it wasn't Freddy Krueger. It was like this woman wearing Freddy Krueger makeup, and I feel like it could have worked, but it is fucking,
It's fucking weird looking, man.
And they just chose not to do it that way because then it looked at this almost an oversized head, because the makeup prosthetic would have, like, they'd have to tuck her hair in and do all this stuff and it would have made her head look slightly bigger. And then she's like, to have it on a naked body is just, it looks fucking weird.
I also wrote down having Nancy return to the franchise here helps to tie in the series back together again. It was good to see her back, although not as good as it should have been. It's unfortunate that we didn't get more of a real showdown between her and Freddy. I feel like this was a massive missed opportunity.
Yeah, there's so much more. There's been so many missed opportunities with these movies, and like I said, we like them for what they are. I love this whole series. Even the ones that are terrible are still
Same.
fun, in my opinion. Like if I could sit down and if you could ever come to Canada or vice versa, whatever, like that, I would love to just do just get drunk or chew some mushrooms and fucking just watch these movies for fucking how it'd be like 10 hours or something ridiculous, 12 hours. But I still enjoy every single one. And there's like, there's always fun elements of these films. And like even I was reading here about how the pig in the movie, when she walks into the house in the dream state of like the Elm Street house, she's a roast pig on the dining room table. When she looks at the pig, it moves and snarls at her. The pig looked very realistic because it actually was a real dead pig.
Yeah, and they had the guy like get under it and whatever, and apparently it absolutely fucking stunk. Which I would imagine. I could see how. Do you want to hear some, just to sprinkle it in between some of our talk, do you want to hear some of the names from other regions?
Okay.
In Japan, the movie was named Nightmare 3 Tragedy House.
Tragedy House?
Yeah, not really digging that one.
I want to hear, what, was that in Japan?
Yeah, and then in France.
I want to hear someone with a Japanese accent say that. Tragedy House.
Oh, God. In France, it was named Freddy 3 Claws of the Nightmare.
Claws of the Nightmare.
I knew it. I knew he was ready to do it.
It's just strange, eh? And it's just funny because the French, I love the French. They know how to start a revolution. But anyone that's in Quebec, go fuck yourself, okay? I'm just kidding. French in Canada, we're not a big fan of the French Canadians. They're kind of slightly a little brainwashed, and they think they're better than us, and they're very rude to people everywhere in Canada. I've said this before, right? Everywhere in Canada, it's bilingual, except for Quebec, where you go to everything's in French, and if you don't speak in French, they're very rude to you. And I've heard that people from France don't like French Canadians, so you're on our side.
It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Here's something actually, and I wrote this down. Obviously, like some of the iconic lines in it are, "Welcome to Primetime, bitch" is probably the most notable one. But I always enjoyed that that explanation of like what Freddy is, and it's that whole thing of the bastard child of 1,000 maniacs.
Yeah, because that wasn't this, wasn't it?
Right?
Did they mention it?
Yeah, right. And I used to say that on a lot of podcasts, and to a lot of people I used to reference that part.
Yeah.
I stand corrected. So myself and many other people who have podcast shows, interviews, make YouTube videos about this have been quoting that line wrong. The line is the bastard child of 100 maniacs.
And we think it's 1,000, right?
Yeah, I don't know where that came from, but like so many people quote it as that, but it's actually not that.
Because it's like whatever. I was just thinking, I was like, it takes only one sperm, right? So his mother is maybe raped by a bunch of maniacs and stuff like that. 100 psychopaths in an insane asylum, but it would only take one sperm to penetrate the egg. So it's only one guy technically. This is like she just went through a horrible experience to create him.
But I get the sentiment of being like, oh, 100 psychos raped you, so like it's like a mixture of all of them. That's why he's a big Barnes child molester.
Yeah, and it's like, it is, to be honest, it is clever for what it is. Kind of like fucked up and weird and strange in some regard. Yeah, it is. I don't know. I think it's because he's such a supposed to be an evil character that is like almost like a sadist, where he enjoys inflicting pain on others, and you know what I mean? Because that's part of who he is, and taunting them and playing with their emotions and their fears and using that and I do like that this one didn't go too far off, and it was mostly kept in the dream world, and that's what the second one ruined for me. You know
what though, right? I love a lot of the special effects and the scenes here. I think they're done really well. Like you said about, the chick working out in her arms, like bending
that
the wrong
shit's
way and
fucked
shit.
up.
It's
Yeah.
absolutely fucking, and it's done really well. It's even by today's standards, it's still quite vile. The Philip guy getting his fucking tendons ripped out and shit. But then it's like there's this weird contrast between like, were they trying to be like so clever that like it ended up looking dumb, But like I wrote down here, I was like, the chest of souls is another iconic scene and a really good makeup. Some
Yeah, I
of
like
the
that too.
stop motion in this movie is absolutely fucking terrible. The Freddy
Yes.
puppet transformation and the scene with John Saxton's character fighting the fucking skeleton looks like something from
Oh
Jason and the
yeah.
Argonauts. It's fucking
Yeah.
horrendous.
It does not look good. I don't know why they chose to do it in the way they did. It could have been done better, but yeah, the Freddy puppet on his own looks kind of cool, but then how he moves and stuff like that is just
Is the
so
part, yeah, I have
badly
the issue
done
with,
and
yeah.
looks like it looks like one of those films from like the 1930s, 40s.
Jason
You know
and the
what I mean?
Argonauts.
That like when they were just using like yeah, all these like dinosaur creatures that look horrible. You know what I mean? Very
Yep.
fucked. So after the Dream Warriors band together, they set off to go rescue Joey, who has been captured by Freddy. They do save him, but not before they venture into Freddy's dungeon, which is filled with smoke, fire, and other junk. The documentary Never Sleeps Again, The Elm Street Legacy, revealed that the room they were filming in didn't have AC, and with smoke and it had fire, it was very hot and hard to breathe. This also made the tension of the room very thick, as Chuck Russell wanted to make everything perfect, which ultimately set filming that day way behind. So, and this dungeon scene, there's no AC. That's why they're like completely sweaty, and there's actual fire and smoke, and that's just a fun fact of like how uncomfortable some of the actors were probably during those scenes.
I think I actually seen something about that. They said something about like fire officers and different things.
Mm-hmm.
There was like a whole back and forth there because of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that'd be fucked. Yeah, I guess you'd have to have firefighters staying by and stuff like that. Weird.
Yeah, like there, again, look, there's lots of iconic scenes. I remember feeling like, when you really break it down, Nancy's death is like super anticlimactic. Like it's just, I feel like seeing
Yeah.
as like, she's the one that's supposed to have started this whole thing. She's like the final girl of the series. You get like Halloween has fucking Laurie Strode. Chucky has fucking Andy Barkley or whatever.
They don't make him gay.
Yeah.
he
is true.
was a fine old boy.
To be fair,
But
though,
he's a boy.
they've
He
made
is a
everything
child.
else in that series gay, though.
I know that I haven't watched the new season of the show. I was enjoying it in some regard, but my girlfriend did not like it. She was like, "It's dumb. It's over the top. It's too over the top." And but that's part of what
I
that's what part of Chucky is.
love Chucky, but I don't like that aspect of it.
Yeah, when we're gonna have to do, I think we should do a deep dive on Child's Play 1, 2, and 3 for sure.
I would love to.
And
we'll
we'll
start
start
the
with
whole Chucky.
Yeah, we
the
will
whole
do
series.
all of it. But I think we should start with just do Child's Play deep dive for everyone that is interested, and do certain stuff by itself, because I feel like I would love to do The Bride of Chucky for sure.
Oh,
that
yeah.
movie is great. Love that movie. Even doing a commentary and a review and doing a different style of maybe a deep dive. But we have to do The Seed of Chucky, and it has to be like a fucking watch along, like review and commentary, because that shit is fucking stupid.
We may get cancelled after that one because I have quite a few things to say about that.
It's fucking weird. It's like, it's such a strange,
But not even in a
fucking
good
film.
way. It's just like, this is just
Glenda the
awful.
retard. And sorry everybody, but
It's like, this is
I know
just
some people
awful.
might think I'm
Asshole!
but that's just who I am.
But yeah,
I was trying to find Freddy clips that was like on soundboards, and there's some like random ones like this.
Where's the fucking bourbon?
Where's the fucking bourbon? Which I was sitting outside yesterday smoking cigars and having some scotch. Chelsea's dad gave me this, like, I bought a brand new bottle of scotch. I actually did enjoy it. It was pretty cheap. And then he gave me one that he didn't really like, and I tried it, and it was fucking awful. And it was probably like way more expensive than the scotch I bought. And it was like, ooh. You've had your fun time on bourbon, right, Aaron?
don't even talk. That's like another
That will
poison.
come out.
I used to think vodka was like, and everybody, like my friends at the time used to always say, as long as you don't drink vodka, it's all good. Now it seems to be as long
Yeah.
as I don't drink any fucking spirits.
Liquor. I know.
Fuck.
Vodka was always safe for me. I was not a fan of gin until I got older. And everyone that doesn't like gin, you just haven't had the right gin yet. Because I've had this elderflower gin that is incredibly good. There are some very good gins. Gins are more expensive, especially because they're there's some good flavor palace to gin if you can actually get into it. But like whiskey used to make me angry, and then I got older, and it kind of eventually dissipated. But I was gonna say the Halloween live special will come out on Patreon this year, but we're cutting as soon as Billy leaves. So don't worry, it doesn't get into any messy territory when you were wasted. Because about when Billy had to leave is about when it went overboard.
Everything went downhill from what I hear. I wasn't there at the time, but from what I hear from Tom and the guys, things went completely off the rails at that point. But I wasn't. I was possessed by that point, so I don't have no memory.
You did chug a bottle of wine, and then you chugged a fucking bottle of Jack Daniels, which is disgusting.
I feel like I can still taste that, you know.
Oh man, I know. I can't drink watermelon vodka anymore because when in grade 8 graduation, so stupid. I chugged like a 26er of that shit walking around. Such a stupid idea. Yeah, so
it sounds like a great idea though.
No, I used to have fun. I will always laugh because the makeup I was wearing, and I could still, because I took a little bit of mushrooms, and this is when I was able to balance mushrooms with alcohol. Now I don't like doing that because it can fuck you up. And I took off my mask. I look like a Batman because I put black makeup on my eye. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Riddler, wasn't I?
Yeah, that costume probably brings you bad memories.
I have it hanging up over there, and I'm like,
ugh. I'll give this one. I'll give this one 8 or 9 Freddy needle fingers out of 10. I actually really enjoy the third movie. It's great.
Yeah, I would probably go with the same. Like I said, I had a couple of gripes. I just felt like Nancy's death was a bit shit. Even when Freddy gets beaten at the end, in my opinion anyway, it's a bit boring. I wasn't.
If anyone's annoyed, my girlfriend was like, "That's probably annoying." The claws on the mic. I'm like, it just gives the element. I've just been playing with these claws the entire 3 hours.
Just you won't be able to hear anything, only that.
Okay, what were you saying? Sorry.
But yeah, I was reading up a little bit more. So this was originally intended to be the last of the Nightmare series, and it was actually shot that way. The shooting script also backs up this idea. In the scene when Dr. Gordon visits Kristen a few days after Freddy's defeat, Kristen reveals that she is moving to New York City, which is the city that never sleeps.
Yeah.
When Dr. Gordon asks her if she's going to see her, meaning Nancy, in her dreams, she answers that she dreams of her every night, suggesting that Nancy is somewhat of a guardian angel. And that is the end.
Because she died. Okay, Nancy dies, right? In this one, am I wrong?
Yeah,
how does she die again?
That's what I'm saying. It's just boring. She just gets stabbed in the chest, and it's just like,
what a weird way to kill her character off.
I know, yeah. Like it just seems really weird. That's what I was saying. Like about Halloween has Laurie Strode. Like all these different franchises have these like kind of iconic,
this
final
one doesn't
girl or whatever. And like this had her. And they just kind of went, I don't know, like, well, we've wasted all the cool kills on other people. Let's just, like, I don't know, just, like, stab her in the chest.
Very strange. They could have made it more intimate because of Freddy's, like, love for her. I did watch this, like, 2 or 3 weeks ago because we didn't know when we were going to actually record this. And I probably would have liked to rewatch this one. But, down the road, we might be doing a commentary on some of the more, beloved ones like this one and stuff like that. But, I don't know. I just feel like they could have made her kill a little more prominent and even sexual because Freddy always seemed to have wanted her.
Really forgetful.
And yeah, because that's what I literally forgot about it, that she even died. And it is weird because this Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th have always been my favorite slasher series, but like they do share the same element of there's not an actual there's a final girl in every movie, but they're all different. Mostly every single one is different except for like the first and second one or something like that. And at least for Friday the 13th, and then they bring her back for the third one. So it is kind of weird considering I don't know, like it will be fun to get into the next deep dive. I really did enjoy this. and I hope the fans did too. And I know, I hope that people enjoy me coming in as another host because I am kind of rude sometimes when it comes to stuff. I don't know if people think that, but I speak my mind, and I'm probably never gonna stop.
Yeah, he is very rude, everybody.
But it's okay. I'm used to being called all sorts of names, so it doesn't phase me,
And
especially.
rude is probably the nicest one.
Yeah, I know exactly. It's fine. People think I'm a fucking white supremacist because I don't like the government. That's pretty fucking weird, in my opinion. This is like, so I'm the one that's bad.
But you like Freddy Krueger though, so you're cool.
Yeah, I'm an awesome guy. I love Freddy Krueger. I love horror movies, and there's so many horror movies encompass so many people. Like the horror community as a whole, also can be very toxic too, because people argue with each other and get into these weird conversations about like even with I follow like different Facebook groups, and you see people arguing about like the best killer in Scream or this or that, and it's just like just enjoy it for what it is. We don't get any more. We got what we got, kind of thing. And to be honest, when you're talking about the Freddy Krueger being in New York, you know how fucking cool that would have been? Like bring fucking Freddy Krueger to New York and he's like in the city and shit and like having some like crazy effects with like apartment buildings and stuff could have been fun. And
I instantly when I read that thing where the idea of her moving to New York and stuff, and I was picturing all these like probably like crazy tacky but like cool ideas you could have done with like Times Square and different things.
yeah. Would have been fun. And when we do eventually dive into Friday the 13th deep dive, which will be coming, so I hope everyone gets very excited because I could probably do 4 hours on the first fucking 3 and then on. Because even like the Friday the 13th Takes Manhattan, that is a movie that people do not like that much. I actually enjoy that one.
Yeah, I
and
don't
we'll
mind
get
it.
into it when we do.
I
It was
don't
the
mind it.
budget was just shitty, but and that was one that I saw. I think before a lot of the other ones. But yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed this. What are you giving this film? I gave like an 8.5
Yeah, I
because
would.
this is a better one.
I would probably give it the same. Again, like look, there's things I could probably pick out that I don't like. I've
Mhm.
mentioned a few things. I just feel like uh how Nancy dies, I just feel like was just completely lost on it. If they
Yeah,
had given
that's
that a
yeah,
better
I
like
agree.
final showdown, I'm not saying she shouldn't have died, but even if they
Yeah.
were going to kill her off, they could have, like you said, made it more intimate or made it something like you actually care. Like, for example, your reaction there where you're like, oh yeah, she dies in this one. How does she die?
I know. I
That's
don't
how everyone
remember.
feels. Like even when I'm thinking about it now, when you were like, how did she die? I was like, she just kind of just gets stabbed in the chest.
Which
And
is it
it's
should have
like,
been like more of like it was kind of a battle, but I feel like it should have been more of a battle of her
yeah,
going against him, and because their history should have been more of like a duel, like a little dance,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
have her like die
Because you
in
get
a
that in every other
more
franchise.
intimate way. Yeah, it's
You get
fucking weird,
But
But
other than that, like I enjoy this movie. I do feel like that when Freddy gets beaten, not killed, but when he gets beaten, I just thought that was a bit
yeah,
boring or whatever. I was like, it's a bit. And then that weird like
I
special
know.
effects of him like, doesn't he like spin around and he's like,
Yeah, it's so
oh,
stupid.
I was like, it's like something out of the fucking
There's some
Power
problems, and
Rangers.
yeah, there's obviously we get what we got, which I keep saying, and stay tuned for the next deep dive into 4, 5, and 6, and you will have already heard Nightmare on Elm Street the commentary. Did you see how I sent you the 5th one on the on the drive?
No, I haven't seen it. Yeah, when
I just put commentary. Stupid. I thought you would laughed at that.
oh wait, I haven't even. I don't have that. Which
Oh,
is
you
weird.
fucking really? Let me see.
Yeah.
That's gonna be that one was fun, and honestly, like for the people that enjoy that stuff, I actually really enjoyed, doing the commentaries, of these films. We have actually yet to do the 6th one, which we will be probably doing in the next week or so, as we're recording this one. But like, for the people that like haven't checked the commentaries, they are fun. We are trying to do it in a different way now, and not be so random, I guess you could say, like
Yeah.
off the cuff, and actually give you some like fun facts and stuff. But I actually really enjoy watching
Yeah,
those.
likewise. Yeah, look for everybody listening. The links will be down below wherever you're listening to this. Obviously, ClassHorrorCast.com.
Hmm.
First Class Horror on Instagram is probably where I'm most active. What about you, Tom?
You can find me at strangebrew.podcast. That's where Instagram I'm more active. I'm going to try to be on Twitter a little bit and post some pictures. So and like videos and stuff like that. I'm not on Twitter often. I wasn't a huge fan of Twitter. I don't know what it's like now because of Elon Musk, but it was just a very toxic environment in my opinion. But I'm going to try to be a little more active on there and, you know, get people more drawn into some of the clips now that they're trying to do a lot of video aspects on that app now. But Instagram is the best way. And then obviously support Strange Brew Podcast. We have a lot of fun stuff coming on that end of stuff, like the real serial killers. And we got the Toy Box Killer that I think should be out by the time this is out. And there's other stuff in the works. And so everyone just go, you know, support the shows. Give us 5-star rating reviews on Apple Podcast for ClassHorrorCast, on Spotify. And then now with Spotify, you can actually comment if you want, and stuff like that, and give us your thoughts and ideas, or maybe what the fans want to be called.
Yeah,
you know,
comment
stuff
only
like
nice
that.
things.
Yes,
We don't want to hear
we
any
want
bullshit.
we want to prove it, so don't worry.
Yeah, we only want
like-
nice things and 5-star reviews.
Yes, you have to be nice because you know, just take my negative energy and make it into a positive one. You know.
Do you have any fun, cool outros? I feel like you're always good at the outro. I always just say bye.
Die, you little bitch.
Die, you little bitch. There. Die, you little bitch. I can't do a good Freddy Krueger voice, but
That's what I thought you were going to do originally. I thought you were going to pull out the Freddy Krueger.
come to Freddy. That sounded stupid.
Oh, God. Well,
That sounded
yeah.
like Cookie Monster. All right.
I guess we'll see everybody for the next deep dive.
yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this shit. It's all about the fun, man. Stay classy, Elm Street.
Sweet dreams.
Sweet dreams, bitch.